What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another installment of Honest and Uneducated, the show where we talk about anything from movies, movie news, comic books, video games, all sorts of fun stuff like that. Don't forget, you can submit topics and questions to the show by emailing us at honestanduneducated@gmail.com. That's honestanduneducated@gmail.com. We got a few topics we're going to get into off the top, just some of the more, I don't know, I guess newsworthy topics, one kind of rumory stuff, but then other than that, there wasn't a whole lot of news. So me and John here, who I'm going to obviously introduce here in just a minute, we're actually going to break down, not really break down, but we're going to rank. And I guess we'll probably kind of review everything too as we do it. But we're going to rank all of the MCU films since it was a slow news week. We figured that'd probably be a pretty good way to spend I don't know, probably a lot of time. We're really at this point not even sure if we'll be able to get through it all in one show, but we're going to try our hardest to have it come out in one show. So, without any further ado, though, John, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm pretty good, man. And like I said, this MCU breakdown, I'm sure is gonna one. Before we get into it, I gotta say just off the top, we're probably gonna say it and have a lot. Our rankings. I don't know what your rankings are. Obviously, you don't know what my rankings are. I think, yeah. I think the only thing you know for sure. Sorry, as I get a drink, is that you probably know what my least favorite film is, but that's pretty much it as far as the rankings. And I'm sure there's like a lot of people are going to disagree with both of our lists. I'm sure because everyone's definitely going to have their own opinion. It's all subjective, but I don't know. We'll get into it when we get into it. Like I'll give a whole.
Worry, I'll tell you where you went wrong. I'll tell you which ones you messed up.
Please, yeah. I'm sure everybody in the comment section will too. But that's what I kind of did want to preface it before we get into it, but I'll just do it right now too. People just need to like realize, John. I don't know if you've noticed this with like, at least it's something I've noticed at the very least. It's like if you see an opinion you don't like, it seems like everyone it just jumps to the conclusion that like your opinion, if it differs from their opinion, it like invalidates their opinion, so they attack you. You know what I mean? And it's like,
or like you're attacking them, or like,
yeah, exactly. It's like, no, it's like you can like whatever you like. You know what I mean? If you want to say Iron Man 3 is your favorite MCU movie, I don't have to agree. Like, it doesn't make your opinion any more or less valid than mine. It's all subjective. And I feel like 90% of any Twitter argument is that. It's just because someone has a differing opinion, and that the one person on either side feels like they're being invalidated because of it. And it's like, no, people are allowed to have different opinions, man. Like, no one's right or wrong, especially in this stuff. Like, it just doesn't matter. Like,
we're gonna help raise the level of discourse in the country with this discussion here. We're gonna set the bar a little higher.
Yeah, I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of. I'm really actually excited to see how different our lists are. In all honesty, I think that's
me too.
It's gonna be.
I mean, I think a lot of the Marvel movies, there's kind of a universal feeling on which are the best and which ones maybe aren't as great.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really curious if that holds true with our rankings.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing too. Like, I feel like a lot of people need to. Obviously, we're going to cover a couple news things first, but just to preface, like all 23 of the movies are good. Like, they're all good movies. I'd say, like, I mean, especially as far as like a filmmaking just aspect goes. Like, some are better than others, like you were saying, but it's not like any of them are like a 2 out of 10, in my opinion. Like, as far as quality of like filmmaking goes, they're probably all a 7 out of 10. Like, maybe if you want to go personal preference, like, I don't know, there might be one that I consider to be less than a 7, but that's just because of me not liking it, you know? It's not. But as far as overall quality goes, none of them are like 90s B movies or 80s B movie quality where you're just like, that movie's like Mortal Kombat, you know, is an amazing movie, but it's a garbage movie at the same time. And like, none of the MCU movies are like that. They're all good, but I don't know. We'll get into that more here. We'll get into it more, I'm sure. But we're gonna have some discourse. But the first thing I want to get into, just off the top here of these news stories, is Olivia Wilde recently did an interview. And in the interview, because as everybody has probably heard, there hasn't been a lot of news about it by any means, but she was recently attached to making a Sony Marvel movie in some capacity. The leading theory right now is that it's going to be a Spider-Woman movie. No confirmation that it is. That's just kind of what the leading thoughts and the theory is, that it's going to be a Spider-Woman movie. But what kind of, I don't know if it necessarily broke the internet, but what kind of caught everyone's eye during this interview, where interviewer was asking her if she could like kind of talk any more about this movie and whatnot and what's going on with it, and she happened to drop Kevin Feige's name during. And I'll just read the quote real quick. But she says, "All I can say is that this is by far the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me, because not only do I feel like I get to tell a story that, God, it's like listen to me trying to avoid Kevin Feige's Pelagon." So, as she's starting to actually like say something about this movie to the interviewer, she has to stop herself, because the Marvel MCU snipers are always about, and they would shut her down. And the fact that she name drops Kevin Feige got everyone kind of thinking, well, wait a minute, if this is a Sony Spider-Man or Spider-Verse movie,
Mhm.
why would Kevin Feige be involved in it, at least to like the capacity that she's kind of getting on about? Because normally, like with the other one, like Venom, for instance, there was no attachment really to Kevin Feige. He may have been on, I don't think he was, but he may have been on the movie and like producer name, maybe, but I don't, he had no involvement in that movie. If you watch Venom, there's no reference to even Tom Holland's Spider-Man, let alone anything in relation to the MCU. Like, there's absolutely nothing. You can maybe find like Easter eggs or nods here and there if you really want to look for it. But that movie was not a part of the MCU. It was its own standalone thing that literally wasn't even attached to Spider-Man. Like they did their own thing. Nobody thought would work, by the way. Everyone said you can't do Venom without Spider-Man, and well, they made $800 million, and they definitely could. That movie was actually better. It was pretty good. Like it was better
Yeah,
than
it
I thought it
wasn't
was gonna
bad.
be. Like it was.
Yeah.
I liked. I don't know. I liked Eddie Brock and the dynamic he had with Venom, and I liked Tom Hardy playing him. It was all good, and I'm looking forward to the next one. But then, just for backstory to make I guess you need to know the backstory of the history of the Sony verse and the MCU to really have any sort of like, I don't know, kind of care about Olivia Wilde dropping Kevin Feige's name, because Venom comes out, like I said, no attachment to the MCU. Then the Morbius trailer gets dropped, and all of a sudden there's a mural of Spider-Man. Well,
Tom Holland's Spider-Man too, not just like a Spider-Man logo. It was specifically Tom Holland's Spider-Man suit from the MCU.
was it? Because I thought it was Tobey Maguire's. I think that's why everyone was confused with it.
We'd have to screenshot. We'd have to screenshot that. I'm almost positive.
It looked. I swear. Hold on. Let me pull it up. The fact of the matter is, yeah, it's what's the name there? It's Tobey Maguire.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's actually. I think people were saying that it was like from the Spider-Man game. Like, so it was like the costume for the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie, but the one that was actually used in the video game, the more recent video game.
Okay.
Where is just give me a bigger picture. Not a picture. Yeah. So you see like the webbing and everything? That is the Raimi costume.
Sorry, I got real up in the camera there.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
But with the eyes on it and everything too, those aren't really the eyes. I think that's what made people think it was from actually the video game, because those eyes aren't exactly the same. You can actually see this little tiny picture.
Sure.
Not exactly the same. But either way, regardless, Spider-Man is in the trailer to some capacity. So, and that's kind of the most important part there. Then at the very end, they have the end tag with Michael Keaton's Vulture character. And it's Michael Keaton as the Vulture from Homecoming, because he's wearing the exact same like prison costume that he was wearing at the end of Spider-Man Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
So that was our first kind of, like, is this connected? And like to this day, no one from Sony and no one from Marvel has commented and confirmed that these universes are now connected and they're going to start intertwining them in any capacity. There's been one kind of offshoot comment from Kevin Feige where he mentioned Spider-Man's like a character that can kind of jump between the universes and blah, blah, blah. But like, that's it. There wasn't any like there was definitely no indication that Kevin Feige was going to be at all involved as far as storytelling and anything goes with these Sony Spider-Verse movies. But until now, which is interesting.
So here's something that kind of struck me while you were talking about that, because this is actually the first I've heard about Olivia Wilde being involved in all this. So I think most people probably that watch us know that last year or end of 2018, Sony and Marvel, after the final it must have been last year, after the last Spider-Man movie came out that was produced by Marvel Studios, but Sony was like licensed or letting them use them again.
Mm-hmm.
It was announced that relationship was over, and that Spider-Man would be reverting back to Sony, and he would no longer be in the MCU movies. And then through maybe some Tom Holland begging and some other stuff, Sony and Marvel reached some sort of agreement to continue that relationship. Do you think part of that agreement was to lend Kevin Feige to Sony to kind of help them build a universe the way he's built the Marvel universe? And maybe that's more what she's referencing, his ability to take a large number of films and give them a clear direction.
I do think the deal is what. This is my tinfoil hat theory about that deal. Because this is what I've thought since day one when that deal happened. Because to some degree, yes, but no. Because what I think that deal actually is, because if you remember, if you go and look at it, like Disney were the ones who rejected the deal. It wasn't Sony. Like Sony wanted to actually continue working with them, because it was funny because it was like everyone was just reading the headlines when those articles came out, and no one like actually read the articles to actually see that it was all Disney's fault. They didn't want to continue the relationship, but Sony did.
Disney wanted a bigger piece of the pie, right?
Yeah, Disney wanted. We don't know the full logistics of it, but what I think happened was that Sony wanted probably I forget how much money they were getting, but I think Marvel was getting like 40% of the profits from Spider-Man movies. So like it was like a 60-40 thing. But then I think they had to split the cost of production. So it's either they had to split the cost. No, I think that's what they wanted to do. I think Disney wanted to split the production cost, but if they did that, that would mean it would kind of backdoor them into actually having partial ownership of Spider-Man, and at least the movies. Because right now, as it stands, Sony was fully putting all the production money into it because they own it and everything. But once another party starts to actually lend funds towards production, it would kind of backdoor them into having some argument of ownership. So I know like Sony didn't want that to happen at all. They wanted to continue. They want the rights to Spider-Man, obviously. That is like Sony's biggest IP that they have is Spider-Man. Like outside of that, they really only have like the PlayStation, and then like they're like because like Sony Bravia TVs are really good, but they don't make as much money as Spider-Man and PlayStation does. That's their big thing, because they really haven't even been making as much movies as they used to back in the day. And but anyway, what I think the deal was, and why Disney didn't want to go through with it, other than them wanting more money and they wanted part of the production deal, is I would have to imagine that Sony wanted to be able to cross over with the MCU like at will, because and not with like everything they do, but the way the deal was before was Spider-Man existed in the MCU, so Spider-Man cannot be used by Sony for their projects. And I think Sony wanted to be able to they wanted to have their cake and eat it too, right? They wanted Marvel to be able to keep Spider-Man in the MCU, but they also wanted to be able to bring Tom Holland in the Venom movie, in the Morbius
Yep.
movie, in this stuff, and have it like coexist together at least through Spider-Man, if not in every way possible. And I think that's probably the biggest disconnect they had, because Kevin Feige, if he doesn't produce it, like if it's not his thing, then he doesn't want to do it. Like that's why he's not gonna bring over all the existing X-Men characters that were in the Fox universe. Like he had nothing to do with those things. Like as far as building the universe, like he wants to make his own stuff. Like he doesn't want like, and which it was completely understandable. Is from like Kevin Feige and Marvel and Disney standpoint, they're like on a roll right now. They don't, if they have literally zero control over what Sony's doing, they wouldn't want to have to be tied down to whatever they're doing over there. You know, if
Sure.
because you run into problems where if they're not working together side by side, like very intricately, if these movies are connected and all of a sudden New York gets blown up in a Sony Spider-Verse movie, well, now Marvel has to worry about that in the MCU if it's all connected. So it's like
Yeah.
if Kevin Feige's not involved over there, there would be problems, obviously. So my guess is that it's not so much Sony wanted Kevin Feige to help them or anything like that, as much as they wanted to be able to utilize their Spider-Man stuff and still kind of keep it all in the MCU, just in some way. You know what I mean? And that means MCU probably can have free reign to some capacity, free reign over, the Spider-Man characters, as long as Sony can then reuse those characters that they're using. Because, like I said before, it was like Tom Holland could exist in the MCU, but then Tom Holland couldn't be over here in Venom, which, I mean, I get that, but that's also a pretty shitty deal for Sony, considering
Sure.
they own the characters, so they should realistically be able to do whatever they want with them. Like, I get that. I get everybody's an MCU fanboy and wants Kevin Feige, he's their god, and they want him to be able to do everything, but he doesn't own Spider-Man. Like, it might be Marvel, but they don't own him. So like, it's also not fair for Sony if they can't do what they want with their own character, in my opinion. Like, I think anybody would agree with that. Like, if they take off their MCU goggles for a little bit, like
Sony swindled Marvel. I mean, they kind of swindled them back in the 90s. Like Marvel was on bankruptcy's door. Like,
oh yeah,
they were having a hard time, and Sony swooped in and was like, "Hey, how about those Spider-Man properties? You wanna license those to us for forever?"
It wasn't just Sony though. Like Marvel
That's
willingly sold it, and then they willingly sold X-Men to Fox.
True.
Like
True.
Marvel did what they had to do, and look where it got them.
Disney knew when they bought Marvel that that's what had gone on, and those were the rules that they had to play by. So yeah, I get what you're saying, and I agree. I just think, everybody that wants the Marvel characters together has, I mean, there's a reason for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Marvel has a long history of those characters crossing over, and I mean, DC did it to an extent, but Marvel built their whole universe up from the ground up with those characters intermingling. That's why everybody's set in New York City just about. Was because they wanted them all to be able to pop in and out of each other's stories. So I don't know where I'm going with all this, but I see what you're saying. I definitely, Sony owns the rights to make the movies. They should be able to use them how they see fit. But I hope that they can figure out a way to coexist, to get along and keep this going.
Oh yeah, that's the thing. I definitely want quality is what I want more than anything, and that's the thing too. Because I mean, I would absolutely love to see Wolverine like with the Avengers one day. You know what I mean? Like I've wanted that. I don't know, like ever since the Avengers came out, I was like, man, it'd be real cool though if Wolverine would just show up here. Like that'd be real cool. I want to see Hulk fight Wolverine. I mean, this stuff would be cool. Like, I'd love to see Deadpool interact with them too. Like, just any of the X-Men characters. I love the X-Men characters. So, I mean, that's at least going to happen potentially at some point now, since they bought Fox. The thing is, though, and a lot of people say this too, and I'm curious how you would feel about it. Like, there was some like most people obviously did want Marvel just to have everything back, right? They want them to have X-Men, they want them to have Spider-Man. They just want to send it back to Marvel, whatever. And I while I agree with that in concept, we wouldn't have gotten films like Logan and Deadpool the way it is right now. And realistically, anything I mean, the X-Men movies were kind of hit and miss throughout the years,
Sure.
but we wouldn't have gotten a lot of this stuff. And then, like, with Sony and Spider-Man, like, we wouldn't have gotten Spider-Man, Raimi Spider-Man 1 and 2, and then uh, the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man, for instance, which the first one I liked. The second one sucked. But that was all Sony's fault on that part.
I'm a Gwen Stacy fanboy, so as much as that movie left a lot to be desired, the Peter and Gwen stuff got me. Like,
Oh, no, it's great.
I can't say I hate the Amazing Spider-Man films just because I'm a big Gwen Stacy fan.
Well, I like Andrew Garfield. I probably honestly like Andrew Garfield. He's probably still my favorite Spider-Man when it comes down to it. Like, in all honesty, because those movies weren't bad because of him. like you know what I mean? Like, he was really good. I didn't really like the direction they went with him being like, he was almost like too cool for Peter Parker, but I don't know. He was still probably, like, when it comes down to it, my favorite Spider-Man at this point. And like, dude, I caught the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2, when that kid goes out to face Rhino at the end. That still gets me, dude. Like, that's actually a good scene. Like, I like that. Yeah, it's a great scene. Like, it still gets me. And but yeah, we wouldn't, like, part of me is obviously happy that, like, Disney and Marvel now has X-Men back and everything, but, like, I just, with everything being under one roof now, we have less diversity. There's gonna be definitely probably no more R-rated anything because it's all owned by Disney, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing.
That's an amazing point that I actually hadn't considered. I mean, Logan is one of the best comic book movies ever made. I mean, top
Absolutely.
10 easy, probably top 5. And you're right. That never happens under the Disney banner. The Disney banner, that movie gets kind of watered down and is made to hit that PG-13 sweet spot. And yeah, you don't get the same film from that.
Right.
Disney won't be as willing to take as many risks with the characters, which you lose. So yeah, that's an excellent point. And I hope that all things being equal, I hope that maybe Disney learned something from what Fox did with their movies and sees the value in letting Ryan Reynolds and the Deadpool team continue to make Deadpool movies the way they have.
Yeah, they really need to. As much as, like, I've, like, with Deadpool in particular too, I've always been in the camp where, like, 'cause I know you and I probably said this before, but I know I preach it a lot. Like, everyone's always worried about, like, the general audience, and, like, it'll be confusing for the general audience if Tom Holland shows up here and then there. It's too it's not fucking confusing. Like, if people aren't stupid, give people a little bit more credit. Like, they're not that stupid. Is, like, your grandma who doesn't really know anything going to be confused? Maybe, but are they going to care? Like, they're just going to see, like,
see the movie anyway.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, it's not really that important. So, like, I've always been in the camp where, like, keep Deadpool doing his thing, rated R, because just release it under the 20th Century banner. Let him do his thing. And if you want to have Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool show up for a quick cameo in an MCU movie that's PG-13, cool. Like, that's not confusing to people. 90% of the people who are going to see Deadpool are watching the other movies too. So it's like they're like, it's not confusing. Like, if we know Deadpool movies are rated R, then we know Deadpool movies are rated R. Like, just because Deadpool shows up for 10 minutes in like a Avengers movie, that isn't going to confuse people. And you're an idiot if you, like, think that just because Deadpool showed up for 10 minutes in one PG-13 movie that all of a sudden his movies are now PG-13. Like,
yeah,
because that's, like, what people say is like, well, it's going to be confusing because people see Deadpool pop up in an Avengers movie, and they're gonna assume they could take their kids to go see Deadpool again, or they're gonna want to their kids are gonna want to see Deadpool, and now they can't see him, and it's like those kids are already watching the R-rated Deadpool movies, dude. They've already seen it. Like it's not as bad as like you think it is. Like, and if you're a parent who is like, no offense, stupid enough to take your 4, 5, 6-year-old to an R-rated movie or to sit down and pop it on, that's on you. Like that's on you. Like, I don't know. I just think it's dumb to kind of like try to hold. Like, I get why you wouldn't want to, but at the same time, most people aren't stupid, and I think they'll get it either way. And it's kind of the same thing with Spider-Man, jumping back and forth to this, Spider-Verse Sony stuff and MCU stuff. Like, I think people will get it. Like, I think it's fine. They should just, but they shouldn't do it just for the sake of doing it. They should just make the best movie possible. That's really all I care about is quality. And that's the only thing, like I said, obviously I want to see X-Men and all these people cross over, but again, it's less diversity and we get less movies out of it. Because before we could have a Fox movie, a Spider-Man, like a Sony movie, and an MCU movie, and a DC movie, all these things coming out. But if it's all being made by Disney now, you're going to get like 1 or 2 a year, maybe 3, and they're going to be, all the MCU movies are great, but not a lot of them take a lot of risks. Some of them do, some of them don't. There's no Logan, there's no Deadpool in there. Like, what I mean? Like, they're all kind of, they follow a very successful pattern, we'll say. Like, that's just kind of what it is. But we're gonna move into these next topics. So whatever you guys think about the Spider-Man stuff and everything, you let us know down in the comment section below. All right, so our next topic here is kind of still in the world of the MCU here. We had some news come out that they have a potential casting of Kang the Conqueror, but he's going to be showing up in Ant-Man 3, which, to me, John, we kind of talked about a little bit before the show. I thought that was kind of odd, because Kang the Conqueror is like an Avengers level threat, and he's just going to show up in Ant-Man 3. But you actually had a good point about why he might show up in Ant-Man 3.
Yeah, so prior to Endgame, everybody was introduced to the quantum realm in Ant-Man, and Ant-Man 2 specifically, right, was where we jumped into the quantum realm with them going in to get Janet back out of the quantum realm. And as everybody that's seen Endgame knows, spoilers, but the quantum realm comes into very big play because it's through the quantum realm and the way that time works when it passes through the quantum realm, or when individuals pass through the quantum realm, that allowed the Avengers to go back and collect the Infinity Stones to be able to re-snap and bring everybody back and take on Thanos. And Kang being a kind of time travel based villain, it's possible that the Avengers' actions by going into the quantum realm has set something in motion that brings him into conflict with them, or he's maybe like the caretaker he's annoyed himself, the caretaker of the quantum realm. And so that's how they kind of bring him in through Ant-Man into the MCU.
Yep, and that's and I actually had, when I first heard it, like I said, I was just like, that's an odd fit. And like, I kind of in the back of my mind thought maybe quantum realm related, but I didn't really think about like, the time travel thing. Maybe like Kang, like being a time traveling dude to some extent. I don't know a whole lot about Kang other than the fact that he's just like some big time travel villain guy. That's pretty much my extent of anything knowing about Kang. So I'm definitely not the foremost expert on Kang by any means, but him kind of maybe catching wind of someone else time traveling, or maybe disrupted the flow of time and he's like pissed off about it, because him being some form of time, they could spin it in a lot of different ways, like maybe like them utilizing the quantum realm. Maybe it's like he thinks it's like he wants to boost his powers or something, so he like wants to go and like figure out what was going on, or maybe like their actions interrupted what he was doing, or something, and like I could totally see, like I can almost guarantee that's why he's there in some way, is literally because of the it has to be, in my opinion. I don't know what else you could do with it.
He could be a rival scientist of Hank Pym's or something that was also investigating the quantum realm at the same time, and their actions caused him to be displaced from time or something like that. Like he's
Right.
like investigating the quantum realm, but when they go mess with it, he gets displaced, and so he's kind of just lost in time and trying to reset his own life, and that brings him into conflict with the Avengers, or specifically Ant-Man.
Right.
But like you said, he's an Avengers level threat. I could see this being sort of the next like little hint of him, and then he shows up in an Avengers movie later on.
Yeah, that's what I would imagine. Like, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know much about him other than like you can see some of these shots where he's fighting the Avengers as a whole. He's not just like some little dude. And his name is Kang the Conqueror, so he's got to like, you kind of have to be a conqueror and like a big deal to get that kind of title. So he's not just called Kang, you know. Speaking of the quantum realm, though, and the Mr. Fantastic popping up on here, what I always have figured they were going to do, and kind of hoped they did in the back of my mind, was that through the quantum realm and everything, that's like we find out that this is how they would introduce Fantastic Four, for instance. Like they're doing their quantum realm stuff in Ant-Man, and they go back down there. Maybe Jane or whatever. Is that the mom's name? Is her name
Janet?
Janet, yeah. Maybe we find out in the Ant-Man 3, for instance, that she's like, I wasn't the only one down there. There were other people like stuck down there too. And then so like they go down there to get them out, and it's Reed Richards, Fantastic Four. You know what I mean? That's what I kind of was. And like there was like rumors that not really rumors, but Peyton Reed, the director of Ant-Man 1, 2, and now 3, a while back, he had actually pitched doing a period piece Fantastic Four movie set in the 60s, like to write and direct it and everything. So like I kind of figured if we were going to get Fantastic Four, well, Peyton Reed's your obvious choice to direct those movies, and you could easily use his script or pitch for them being doing the 60s period piece, but twist it in a way where they were around in the 60s and they've been stuck in the quantum realm ever since then. So then you get a whole Man Out of Time story with all of them, and you could still go back and do like a prequel movie explaining how they got stuck there. But our first introduction to them could be Ant-Man going down the quantum realm and saving them and bringing them to our time.
Plus, it's a great excuse to explain where they were when Thanos attacked. Like,
absolutely.
Why would Reed Richards, one of the smartest men on the planet, just be like, stay off the field during the biggest fight in the world's history or whatever?
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem they're gonna have with like all the X-Men stuff too.
Yeah,
I mean, because that's like, not to go off topic, but with the X-Men stuff, a lot of like, I mean, especially like Magneto and everything, like, and like a lot of like the history with the mutants and stuff. It's all about like the human mutant conflict, and like how society sees mutants. But if they're going to introduce the mutants into modern day MCU, one, everybody's pretty much cool with superheroes in the MCU. Like the Avengers are around, and like the only one people are kind of questionable about it anyway is Hulk, just because he kind of freaks out every once in a while. But I mean, everyone's pretty on board with the Avengers. I mean, yeah, the whole Sokovia Accords happened and everything, but when Thanos came around, I'm pretty sure everyone was really looking for the Avengers to help. Like everyone, like despite anything, they're pretty cool with superheroes. So and that's honestly one thing in the comics I've always like. You kind of just have to accept. It's like, well, people hate mutants for whatever reason, but we're cool with Thor and all them. Like those guys are fine. Like, but they run into that problem introducing them now because now they have to explain where they've been. If they're just going to be a result of the snap, which is kind of boring, but it's probably the most likely thing. And it kind of does disrupt the whole, like age-wise, like Magneto kind of loses his backstory of being, like a Jew in the Holocaust and all that stuff. If it's happening now, he's going to be like 80 years old or something. So they're going to have to find something else out to, if you want to go with that. You could always just, I don't know, just throw that stuff out and just tell a new story with it. But
you could also, I mean, like we were talking about, there's the whole scene in Endgame where Bruce gets sent to the Ancient One to retrieve the I forget which stone it was he got from her, The stone that's in, it's the time stone. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's in the Eye of
Agamotto.
So he goes to get that, and she's telling him about the flow of time and how you have the divergent timelines that go off in any direction. So, I mean, they could play around if this quantum realm and Kang could be a way to play around with that timeline and still keep everybody intact the way that we as viewers know them, but then also weave in some history that hasn't been there before, and just like this is the divergent timeline now that's gone off. So
that would be a little bit more interesting if they just actually merged two different, almost like the multiverse merge in DC, right?
Sure.
If they were just like, well, in this other world, the mutants were a thing, and Magneto could still have his past and everything, whatever. And because that's the one thing with Magneto, like I keep using as an example, is like him being, a Jewish kid in the Holocaust and witnessing like the utmost worst of humanity is why he hates humanity. Like that's the main, juxtaposition that he has against, mutants first and humans second, because he's seen how, shitty they were to just other humans in general, let alone mutants and everything. So when you lose that, what do? He has to have some other kind of event that occurs in his life that makes him, see humans for what he believes they are, just being, they're the monsters, not mutants, So if they did like a time scrunch thing and just like kind of merged dimensions as a result of the Infinity Stones and the snaps and stuff, albeit it could be kind of like lazy in some ways. And like you always like when you try to do these time travel stories, it kind of just like things you just kind of create problems, just like there are in Endgame alone, where you're just like, well, if did that, then how did this happen? And like whatever. Yeah. But I guess you just kind of have to like, it's like if you want this to happen, you got to accept it. It's just like just do it. So I mean, I could see that happening to some capacity, and like I don't know. In the end, I think everybody just wants all the characters, like we were saying before, everyone just wants them all to be able to commingle, and they want them to be who they're supposed to be. So I don't know if I have to just like accept plot holes here and there, I'm perfectly fine with doing it as long as it's explained in like an okay way. And I don't know,
as long as the movies are still good and entertaining.
Yeah, I mean that's all that's really important. So. And anyway, the guy who's playing Kang the Conqueror too, or supposed to be playing Kang the Conqueror, it's not 100% sure, but it's Jonathan Majors from Lovecraft Country, which I have not watched, and I'm not familiar with his work otherwise. So I can't really speak to if it's good casting or not. But I don't know. I was also kind of hoping they would go the Fantastic Four route, because since I don't know much about Kang the Conqueror, I obviously rather would have seen like Apocalypse or Galactus as their next like 20 movie build up villain, Because I mean, I don't know, Thanos is some big shoes to fill, and I just felt like the easy answer was,
well, maybe this is the rebound villain. Maybe Kang isn't the next 20 film villain, but maybe he's the next one that gets us to the next Avengers
the
movie.
Ultron villain.
Exactly. And then that springboards you into a Galactus story. This gives you time to set the table for the Fantastic Four and then eventually Galactus or something like that.
That's probably the way they would go. That's the way I think Galactus that's a big deal if they were to actually do that, because they could also do a lot with that shit, man.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do Silver Surfer stuff, and then like they could do they wanted to do the Hulk becomes like a Herald of Galactus thing at one point. I mean, they could do a lot.
Yep.
Presumably. I don't think they would ever do that stuff, but it'd be really cool. Like, it'd be really cool to see. So
it'll be interesting just because those, Silver Surfer and Galactus were used in the, what are the 15, 20 years? It's been 15 years already. The original ones? Fantastic Four, yeah. The Fox Fantastic Four movies, since they used them in there, I'm curious if Kevin Feige's a little, I don't know what the right word is, gun shy to reuse a villain.
Dude, those would be for one, if I was Kevin Feige, I would be sitting here just mouth watering just to be able to actually make a good Fantastic Four movie.
Yeah.
Like we've had, I mean, there were two of them with the ones you're talking about. Then we had
Chris Evans,
Fantastic.
Michael Chiklis, Jessica Alba. And I can't remember who played Mr. Fantastic.
I don't remember his name either now.
It's the guy from Nip Tuck, right?
No, that was the guy who played Doctor Doom.
Doctor Doom, okay.
And that's what I was going to get at, though. Is like I just want, like, Doctor Doom is also realistically an Avengers level threat in some ways.
Sure.
Like he's gone out of his way to be a pretty big deal. And Doctor Doom, especially the Galactus cloud that came up in the second, like, I mean, Galactus hasn't been used. Like that, whatever that cloud was not Galactus. So like I wouldn't be worried about that. But I want to see. Doctor Doom had pretty much 3 tries to be good, and it wasn't. Like, I don't know how hard it is. Like, Doctor Doom is like, I don't know. He's one of the coolest villains in Marvel, and like somehow, like, it doesn't matter how cool your character is, if you don't use him right, he's not cool. Like, Doctor Doom's been used 3 times, and he's been laughable at best.
Yeah.
At no fault of any of the actors or anything. It's just the writing. It's like I like the dude who played him from like Nip Tuck and stuff, because I watched the show Charmed back in the day, and he was like one of the core dudes in that in like season 3 or 4. He played like the main demon guy, and like, dude, he was super cool. He was the best part of that show. He was the only reason I liked this show, obviously, because it was kind of like a soap opera-y kind of show with like 3 girl witches, you know. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Charmed. I'm not really recommending it, but I liked that guy.
I had a roommate that was heavy into Charm, and so I saw an episode here or there. It was fine.
It's really not. It's very. It reminds me of what CW shows are now. And it's funny enough, they remade it.
Show, so yeah.
And they remade Charmed recently. I don't think that went too well, but they tried to remake it and reboot it. They also tried to reboot another soap opera show that I liked, was Roswell. It was about like the aliens from you know, that show was. These are both shows. I don't know why I'm talking about them, because this was like completely off topic, but they were like super cheesy. It was literally like CW, but back in the 90s. But like in some ways, honestly, they were better quality than some of the other ones that are out there. Like Supernatural aside, Supernatural's great, but I don't know. That's pretty much all I got on the Kang the Conqueror stuff. Unless you got anything else you want to add.
No, I'm glad we're getting some more MCU news. It's been a while. I know COVID shut some stuff down and things got slow for a while, but I like that they're slowly turning that spigot back on, and things are starting to trickle out.
Speaking of which, too, we like Black Widow just got pushed back again, and like Black Widow was a movie that, for one, should have happened like 10 years ago, but for two, I never thought we were going to get, especially since so much time has gone by. And I wasn't like super excited for it, because the timing wasn't right for it in my mind. You know, it's like, if you wanted to, it just felt like if you wanted to do Black Widow, you should have done it, you know, probably before she died, for one. Like, it's like just throwing that out there. But after the trailers came out, the movie actually looks really good.
Yeah,
like it
looks so good.
It looks really good, and like I loved when they, like, in the second trailer, I think they actually showcased Taskmaster like using the Avengers mimic power, essentially, like when the Black Panther claws thing come out, like when he's using the shield as cap, like all that. I was like, because I know what he's doing. A lot of people probably just like, oh, he has a shield like Captain America, like the general audience we're talking about. But like, I'm just like, dude, they did a good job. I know exactly what they're doing right now. This is good. So I was like really hyped for that. Like, it looked really good. And then what's his name? David Harbour as Red Guardian looks super good. Like, my expectations for the movie were like, eh. But then I saw the trailers and I was like, oh, okay. Like, I'm up here. And now that was supposed to be out in like July. And it just keeps getting pushed back. So I'm kind of bummed about it, but I don't know. They're not just going to like drop it on Disney Plus because it's like $1 billion movie, because that's what the MCU does. So I don't know. Anyways, guys, you let us know what you guys think about everything we just said. I know we went off topic a bunch there. So you let me know what you thought about Charmed. You let me know what you thought about Roswell. And then, you know, maybe if you care about Kang the Conqueror and the MCU stuff like we were actually talking about, you can let us know about that too down in the comment section below. All right, guys. So our final off the top topic is we're gonna address the rumor going around here, and I guess we'll probably talk about the trailer too because it just came out. But there's been rumors that are, in my opinion, completely unsubstantiated. But I'll get into that here in a little bit. That the Mandalorian star Pedro Pascal has supposedly quit halfway through season 2, and I say unsubstantiated because no one from Disney and no one from Lucasfilm, Pedro himself, no reliable source on set of Mandalorian. Like, there's been no confirmation of this from anybody reliable in any way, shape, or form. Not to discredit anybody who's been reporting on this by any means, but there hasn't been any this is pretty big news if it were to be true, and I feel like if the news actually leaked and there was some credence to it, that Disney would have wanted to get out in front of it and actually comment on it in some way. And there's crickets about that. So I don't. That's just one of the many reasons that I don't think it's true. But most importantly, one of the things that people were saying in the story were he didn't Pedro didn't wearing his helmet or something, and just weird stuff coming out here, and it's people don't. Pedro's not even on set 80% of the time for the show. He literally it just does the voice for him for the most part. There was a scene, the episode, I think it was episode 3 or 4 in season 1, the one that Ron Howard, Bryce Dallas Howard, the one that she directed. She didn't even meet Pedro Pascal. She directed the entire episode, episode 3 or 4, the one where they were at the camp with the ATST thing.
Yep.
That Pedro wasn't on set for that entire episode. And he even takes his helmet off in that episode. You don't see it, but he takes it off, and you see the silhouette. Wasn't Pedro. He's not even there half the time. So, for them to come out and say, there's just these, I just don't buy these rumors that, he was, upset about, no, having to wear a helmet and, all these things. He signed on to be the voice actor for it. They did the whole, yeah, he's in the suit. He's got the one scene where the helmet is off, and you see it's him. He does do some things on set, but not many. He has 2 different stunt guys that do, gun work, and then another guy does martial arts work. Those are the 2 guys you actually see in the suit all the time. You don't actually see Pedro. If you see him with his helmet on, which is literally 99% of the show, it's more than likely not even Pedro Pascal. He just did the voice work. And I think people are just, overlooking that. So for him to have any problems with the show and problems with wearing the suit, how does that even make any sense?
Well, and so to go along with what you were saying, how there's been no confirmation from anybody on Disney, but Pedro hasn't confirmed it. And to take that one step further, not only has he not confirmed it, he's actually been actively promoting the show. He is retweeted and released the promo images as they've been coming out, the trailer as it came out. You would think somebody that was so upset that their lack of FaceTime in this show that they walked off set and quit would be it. They'd be burning that bridge and they'd be like, I'm done with your show. But no, he's still out there actively promoting the new season. So yeah, this rumor doesn't hold a lot of water for me.
No, it doesn't at all. And that's the thing too. And I'll play devil's advocate and say, and I have an example that backs it, is if let's say it were to be true, him doing all that stuff is contractual, we'll say. Because if you remember, when was it? At the Comic-Con that they were promoting Justice League. Ben Affleck's up on stage. Anybody who sticks to the news pretty much already knew that Ben Affleck was done with Batman at this point. There were already inside rumors that Ben was done with Batman, but Justice League hadn't came out yet. So they couldn't have, Warner Brothers couldn't have the news that Ben Affleck leaves Justice League and is no longer playing Batman before Justice League comes out, because now the story is Ben Affleck leaves and not, yay, Justice League's coming out. Yay. And they're kind of in the same situation here with Mandalorian, because Mandalorian season 2 hasn't came out yet. So they could be having to do it, just being a good soldier as Pedro would be. If this doesn't make sense, if he's so unhappy with the role, like you said, it's
Well, and the rumor that I heard was
Really?
he walked off in the middle of filming season 2. So like it would be more like if Ben had walked out in the middle of filming Justice League, not after Justice League was over with. And
Right.
at that point, he's already broken the contract to appear in those episodes. And I don't know, the whole thing is just very, very suspicious. I feel like you said, it's a slow news week and people were kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel for things to talk about.
Yeah, and like that's the thing, like, because that's the thing with most people, like with the Ben Affleck thing people took away from it was that he got questioned about because right at the time they were promoting Justice League at Comic-Con, the news came out that Matt Reeves is going to be directing the Batman movie, and they hadn't announced Robert Pattinson yet at this time, but so everyone's leading presumption was that Ben was supposed to be writing and directing the Batman movie, the solo Batman movie, but then there were some stories coming out that he wasn't going to be doing that anymore, but it hadn't really been confirmed yet. And then all of a sudden, news dropped that Matt Reeves was directing it. All of a sudden, so he obviously got questioned about it, and then Ben Affleck literally said I'd be an ape on the floor for Matt Reeves. Yeah, blah blah blah. He said he was pretty much still going to be Batman, and he was going to be in that movie. So there could obviously be some credence and correlation to this story, but the fact that they're saying he walked off set, like I said, he ain't even on set. 90% of the time, he's not even there. And that number might be kind of skewed, but you literally have confirmation from directors on the show who literally said that they never even got a chance to meet him.
Yeah.
He's the star of the show. But he's not there all the time. So it doesn't make any sense. And you'd think that we'd have some sort of confirmation from somebody. Somebody would have to have said something. Yeah. I don't buy it for the sheer fact that I know he ain't even on set. So it just doesn't make sense to me. At all. But the trailer looked great. What did you think of the trailer? We can talk about that real quick.
Yeah. I mean, you summed it up. It was great.
It was very good.
I mean, it was just it was like a friend that you haven't seen in a while came over to visit or something. It was just
yeah,
all the good things that you remember just came back in that quick little visit with them, and you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait till we go on that long vacation this winter. This is gonna be great.
It looked better than season 1 did. Honestly, I I don't know what it was about it, but I don't know if it was maybe the tone seemed different, but it seemed I don't know. I just the whole vibe of the trailer. I just liked it. I was way more excited for this season. And maybe it was just because season 1 was so good, overall. So I was just excited to see season 2. But I don't know. I just really liked the overall tone of everything that happened. And then obviously the little scene when he activates the little whistler missile things on his hand, and then Baby Yoda's shit. I was that's great.
So good.
The hummingbirds or whatever they're called. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that was great. See, I don't know. And I'm excited for the whole. I don't know. We were kind of talked about it last week, I think, when they could go in so many different ways with his mission now being to unite Baby Yoda with his people. And I don't know, I'm just excited to see where that actually goes.
Well, the whole first season was so shrouded in mystery going into the story. I mean, nobody, like we talked about last week, nobody had an idea that Baby Yoda was going to be in there. And so then you had kind of a season that kind of was, it was setting everything up. And now everything's been set up. And this trailer really gave you the sense that there's a certain storyline that they're going to be following throughout the course of this season. And, yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm. And they had the one shot of I forget the actress' name, but she's a WWE wrestler. Because when the overlay was when they were talking about the Jedis and returning the baby and blah blah blah, enemy sorcerers, whatnot. Then they show the hooded figure of the girl, and then she disappears. Mm-hmm. I forget the actress's name. I think Sasha Banks. That's who it is. But her character hasn't been confirmed yet, but everyone is presuming that she's playing Sabine Wren because of Ahsoka being in it as well. Okay. Because in Rebels, Ahsoka kind of joins Sabine, and Sabine. You didn't watch Rebels, right? You didn't watch.
I didn't watch Rebels, no.
Well, Sabine Wren is a Mandalorian.
Okay.
She's a female Mandalorian, but I think, if I remember correctly, she was exiled. I think it was a self-exile. I don't 100% remember. been a while since I watched Rebels, and I didn't watch the whole last season. I just watched the Ahsoka fight Vader. That was really all I cared about towards the end there. Rebels had the same kind of problem that like CW show have, not to keep shitting on CW in some way, but like there's a lot of filler episodes, and since it's like animated like kids show filler, it's really not appealing, you know. Like it just kind of gets really lackadaisical. So I didn't really watch. I watched Darth Maul stuff, and then I watched like Darth Vader stuff, and like that's it. So I missed a lot of context. But anyway, people are assuming she's playing Sabine, which would be cool because she is obviously has her helmet off in that scene, and she's like, you know, our Mandalorian's whole creed thing is that they can't take the helmet off. So like I'm kind of curious if we're ever going to get an answer as to why they do that. Is it like just because they're all foundlings and like foundlings aren't allowed to take it off because they're not like true Mandalorians? So for them to be a Mandalorian, they're not allowed to take off the armor is like really the only assumption I kind of have at this point. But like, I'm also wondering if like they even know that there are other Mandalorians out there at this point, since they were talking about like throughout the season of Mandalorian, they talk about some like cataclysmic event that happened with like the Mandalorians, like maybe the planet Mandalore, even I don't really fully remember, but like something happened that dispersed everybody, and now we just have these little factions of them. So I'm wondering if like they even know that like any kind of like real lore behind like the Mandalore or anything like that, to like know that any like original Mandalorians even exist at this point. Like, so I'm just interested to see like if he meets Sabine and Ahsoka, which I'm sure they probably will, what that interaction is going to be like. You know, like him being kind of this weird offshoot Mandalorian with their own set of rules, running into Sabine, who is kind of in the same way, but like a completely different boat. Like, you know, she's hanging out with a Jedi who, in his mind, is an enemy sorcerer. You know, so it could create a lot of interesting character dynamics and provide a lot of growth and like shit for Mandalorian dude himself. So I don't know. That's what gets me excited.
He's so in. I mean, because the Mandalorians found him and basically saved him and raised him. He's so in on that, on their teachings, and he's bought into that so much that this could be an interesting way to do some character growth with him questioning what he's been raised to believe his entire life, and does Rin have a different way that's just as valid that he maybe wants to explore? So
right, which is what kind of what like we're getting with the whole Baby Yoda thing, because like he even says like, you want me to take this thing back to a planet full of enemy sorcerers? Like yeah, this is the way. And it's like, hey, like whatever. Like, so I mean, yeah, it would be interesting. That's why I'm interested in seeing how he's going to react to like these other Mandalorians out there if it happens. Like, she might not be playing Sabine, so who knows? It's the only thing that kind of makes logical sense at this point. But we'll just have to wait and see. It's like October 30th, right?
October 30th, yeah. The other thing that trailer, just real quick, this will be the last I have to say about it, but I was glad the trailer didn't. They gave you enough to make you feel all the warm and fuzzies, but they didn't spoil anything. It didn't give you too much. You didn't see the dark blade, you didn't see anything like that. It's, you know, I like that they left a lot of mystery to it.
Right. No, I agree, because that's the thing too. Because a lot of people were wondering why they didn't show Ahsoka, but I feel like Ahsoka is probably going to be in one episode, and I feel like if they start marketing Ahsoka, people are going to be disappointed that there's not more Ahsoka. And I mean, it's not an Ahsoka show, so I mean, I don't. In my opinion, I'd rather be like completely surprised when Ahsoka shows up rather than, I don't know, kind of see a bunch of scenes of her and then like kind of already have an idea of what's going to be going on in her scenes. I'd rather be more surprised with that aspect, because I don't even care about it being Ahsoka. I'm just more interested in how the Mandalorian character is going to, our boy Din Djarin. I guess since we know his name, we can just call him Din Djarin. I'm curious of what he's gonna think about like the Jedis and all this stuff. Like that's what I'm more interested in. Like it could be any Jedi really, just like him. Because I don't know. I don't want them to be introducing all the Jedis and stuff, because then it's like
then the show becomes about the Jedi and not.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But it's like, so I think Ahsoka is a good choice, and she's kind of like, I don't know, not necessarily morally gray or a gray Jedi, but like she left the Jedi, but she still is trying to do good, and like it's a good fit for this show, for her to be the one to do it. So I'm looking forward to it, and it'd be interesting to see how they like do all that fucking weird ass head tails for her, because it's not your traditional like Twi'lek kind of head tail. It's like I'm curious. I'm definitely curious how she's gonna translate to live action. So we'll see. But whatever it is, guys, you let us know what you think about this Mandalorian season 2 rumor that Pedro's left. I think it's complete nonsense. Until we get confirmation from actual reputable sources, I don't see why anybody would really buy it. But that's just me. What did you guys think of the trailer? We're looking forward to it. You let us know what you guys think down in the comment section below. All right, guys. So we are going to get into the top 23, the rankings of our MCU films, and we're gonna have to, again, another disclaimer. This list is 100% subject to change. We were just actually talking about this. I mean, this as I was looking over my list before we started this here recording. I'm not even sure if it's accurate, and I made it. So, it's definitely the only thing I can assure you will never change is the number 23 film. Like if we're going from worst, quote unquote worst, because again, these are all good movies. Like in some aspect, I don't think the 23rd was good, but like my bottom tier is I'd say fairly accurate. But as we start to move on, you could almost insert any of them from that point, and I probably couldn't argue with it. So we'll have to see here. And the way we're gonna break this down, just so you guys can just have some idea, we're gonna go our bottom 5, and then we're gonna go the second. So we'll just say bottom 5, then the second set of 5, then third set of 5, fourth set of 5, and then we'll do the top 3 last. So I'm gonna make a list here jankily as we go, but you're only gonna see the current 5 each time, if that makes sense. Hopefully it'll make sense. I'll try to at least number it correctly in some way, and then I'll keep another list of yours, what you give me of yours on the side here, so that I can do one final tally at the end and have all 23 up of our ranking. And then once we see all 23 of our rankings side by side, I'm sure we'll start fucking moving shit around. So
yeah, I just have to reiterate what you said. This list is very subject to change. I fully anticipate that you will say something or give me an argument for why one of yours is where it is, and I'll go, well, shit, I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, I agree, and have to move something from mine up or down accordingly.
Well, that's the thing. I'll tell you what. That's what needs to happen on Twitter more often, because here's the thing: not that people need to change their mind or anything, but a proper conversation and civil discourse. The whole point of having, two conflicting, arguments is the fact that, like, it's not my job to convince you to have my opinion, because that's everybody wants to hear. No one really cares about what your opinion is anymore. They just want to hear their opinion come out of your mouth. Mm-hmm. That's what they want. They don't want to like actually have a conversation and see where you're coming from and then accept it. And maybe I hear John's opinion on one of these films, and it doesn't affect how I feel about it, but maybe I have a better understanding of why he likes it and like why he doesn't like it, and then you accept it. That's what you're supposed to do. You accept the fact that you have a difference of opinion, because that's normal.
the biggest thing you said there is that you hear it. You actually listen to what the other person is saying. You don't just come at take what they're you just don't take in what they're saying and filter it through well, that's not right. You actually try and hear what they're saying and listen. So.
Yeah, because it's actually all of this stuff, like films in particular, like any sort of art, it's all subjective. No one's right or wrong. Like, there's objectively bad filmmaking, but if someone likes it, that doesn't mean they're wrong for it's like I said, Mortal Kombat is a terrible movie. Like, functionally, it's a terrible movie, but I love that movie, and I will watch that movie all the time.
Classic.
It's not like a Mortal Kombat's winning Oscars. It's not objectively like well liked and good and like amazing film. But it doesn't take my enjoyment away of it. Like I'll watch Mortal Kombat over Citizen Kane any day. Like that's not an argument. It's not that it's better, but I'd rather watch it. Like, it's the same concept applies here. So, I'll try to make this as less confusing for people as possible. Do you think I should just do, as far as the list goes, like numbering it wise? I guess I should start at the bottom and just do 23. I guess it'll probably be the easiest way for people. Like if I just do like 23 down here.
Yeah, maybe. I mean that would work.
So 23.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully the font's not too big. We're doing this on the fly. My 23 is Iron Man 3.
Oof.
That is my least favorite Marvel movie. 100%. I don't like that movie. I don't think it was objectively bad as far as filmmaking goes. It was made competently. I'll get into more of it here. I'm just gonna put my whole 5 here up, and then we can talk about them. 22. I might have to make this smaller. Well, I'm gonna do that. Incredible Hulk. Ed Norton's Incredible Hulk. Again, I actually like that movie, so just had to put it down here. In comparison to other films, this is where I had to go. 21 is Thor. I'll just say Thor 2. It's The Dark World.
Okay.
That would be my 21. Try to fit it on here for you folks. Then my 20. I told you this would be janky, but I don't know his list, so I couldn't just have mine like pre-stage. I guess I could have had mine pre-stage to save everybody some time, but this makes things more interesting, doesn't it? Iron Man 2 would be right here at 20. And then we'll go 19.
Okay.
All right. This is my list so far. This is where we're at.
All right.
You want me to go over any of these, or you want me to put yours up and then we can discourse it out?
Why don't we do mine? Okay. I will tell you right now that 1, 2, 3, 4 of your what are we calling this? 4 of your bottom 5 are also 4 of my bottom 5.
Well, look at that.
So
look at that. What's your 23 then?
So 23 for me is Incredible Hulk.
Okay.
And I'm having a hard time reining in my wanting to talk about. I'll get them up here and then we'll talk about them.
You're
so
good.
22 was Captain Marvel.
I'll just do this Captain Marvel.
21.
21?
21 is Iron Man 2.
Okay.
Or I'm going the wrong way. 20 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2.
Ooh, okay. GOTG Vol 2. Okay.
And then 19 is Thor the Dark World.
Yeah, there we go.
So
there we go. TW. Okay, so this is actually this is not surprising to me. Actually, we're kind of on the same page here then.
Yeah,
So yeah, so This was actually tough for me too, because like I said, I like the Incredible Hulk movie. Like, I actually think it's pretty decent. Like, it's not a bad movie. Like, it's
That's a great place to start because I agree with what you're saying.
like, and
I'm interested to hear why you have it at the bottom though, or towards the bottom.
it's just a quality. It's because the other ones are so much better. Is the
Really?
problem. That's really it. Because like, I don't know though, because like I said, subject to change. I'd honestly probably watch Incredible Hulk again before I'd watch another film that's higher on the list. But I don't know. I'm trying to rank them in a way to where like I don't know, I'm trying to be a little bit more objective about it. Like in some way, I know it's all subjective, but I'm trying to rank them in like, because this is obviously hindsight. Because I remember when I first saw Iron Man 2, like I loved that movie, but then like, I mean, it didn't age as well as like it didn't age as well as like Iron Man 1, for instance. Like surprisingly, because like Iron Man 1 is older, you would think that the sequel would age better, but Iron Man 2, I mean, it kind of had a little bit of like sequelitis to it in some way. I think like it was not as good. It was definitely nowhere near as good as Iron Man 1 was.
Yeah.
Like in any way. Iron Man 3, I kind of briefly talked to you like a week or so ago about it. Dude, Marvel doesn't even like that movie. Like there's been no reference to any of the events that happened in Iron Man 3 in anything other than Endgame when that kid shows back up out of nowhere, just sitting there at Tony's funeral. Spoiler alert for all the MCU movies, by the way, it's gonna happen. I don't know why you'd be watching this if you didn't see all the movies, but like literally Iron Man 3 starts, he has PTSD from the Avengers incident, where he almost dies and all this stuff. So he's got all this PTSD going on. And then like he blows up all his suits at the end. Don't even get me started on the whole extremist thing. Like that, like Pepper has like superpowers. No, she doesn't, apparently, according to Marvel, because they never address that ever again. So like it's not just me who thinks this movie is forgettable, because Marvel's trying to forget it as well. And not to mention, Age of Ultron comes out after Iron Man 3. Tony's blown up all his suits and given up being Iron Man, but he's just Iron Man right when the movie starts. They don't explain anything about Iron Man 3 and like why he's back. Nothing. And you even said like they took the arc reactor, they got all the shrapnel out of him. He doesn't even need to wear the arc reactor anymore, but he's still doing it. Like, they're trying to forget about this movie just as much as I wish I could forget about it. Okay, because in note, I didn't mention anything about Mandarin. That's not what bothered me. That's not the worst part of that movie in any way. Like everything else was bad about that movie, not the Mandarin stuff. It was fine. Like I didn't really care about that. I didn't expect to see fucking Fin Fang Foom flying around in the Iron Man movie. It's like, I don't know. And then like Thor 2, The Dark World, just kind of, it's the worst of the Thor movies, really. I mean, obviously. I mean, Thor 1 was great, super underrated comic book movie in general, in my opinion. And I don't know. Like that's just pretty much all I got on these ones. Like,
so it's funny to hear you talk about, not funny. It's interesting to hear you talk about Iron Man 3 because a lot of your justification for why Iron Man 3 is at the bottom of your list is also my justification for why Incredible Hulk is at the bottom of my list. I actually really like the Incredible Hulk movie. I think it's a great movie.
Me too.
The problem for me is it doesn't feel like an MCU movie. And it doesn't feel like an MCU movie because not just because Edward Norton doesn't reprise his role when we get into Avengers and we have the switch over to Mark Ruffalo. It doesn't feel like an MCU movie because it's never referenced. The only thing that ties it to the MCU is the one shot at the very end of the movie. I think it's the post-credit shot with
Tony and
General Ross, and Tony comes in to talk to General Ross. So other than that, you have no real ties to anything that happens in the MCU. It's kind of like this just side note that doesn't really fit.
It truly is the black sheep of the MCU, like 100%.
Which feels a lot like what you were saying about Iron Man 3, which is all very true. It doesn't. I think the one thing I'll give Iron Man 3 is that you do have some of that after effects of Avengers and Tony almost dying that he goes through. But other than that, you're right. It's completely forgotten about. I still, to this day, remember sitting in the theater when Age of Ultron came out and going, well, why is Tony Iron Man again? What, did I miss something? Was it like a tie-in on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or something that I missed?
It just starts with it. Like, he's like the opening scene, him flying through, like, it's no explanation at all.
Very last scene of Iron Man 3 is he gives up being Iron Man. So the whole crux of the end of that movie is that Tony is giving it up, and that's completely disregarded in the first 10 seconds of the next movie that comes out.
It makes no sense. Like, it literally blows my mind that, like, it's the thing, and like in any other movie, it's like, who cares, right? Like, literally, who cares? But the problem is, like, the MCU is so, like, interconnected with everything, and that's like kind of like your juxtaposition on the Hulk, and like how it's just like it really doesn't feel like an MCU movie. Like, it feels like a standalone, like, random Hulk movie, and it's like tonally different, everything, but it's just never acknowledged anymore. Like, it has literally, if you take a post-credit scene out, there's no acknowledgement of it like existing at all within the MCU. We've never like heard or seen anything about Abomination ever again. None of it's happened. Like, there's been nothing. We did get confirmation that supposedly he is still on the raft, though. Did they say that in, or was that off camera? Someone said that, or someone said like Blonsky's still on the raft or something at some point.
Oh, I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
I don't know if that was in a movie or if they just said that off camera somewhere, like someone asked and then they said it. But I don't know. Like, it's just Captain Marvel's the only one I haven't really talked about. Why is Captain Marvel so low on your list?
That one's tough. It felt like a knee-jerk reaction to DC getting Wonder Woman out first. I'm not really sure. Having it be a period piece set in the 80s and then, having her be gone off-world. Was it 90s? Sorry. Yeah. It just... It was a good movie. I liked it. It was fun. It just didn't have the weight and the influence over the MCU that I think the rest of the movies have had. Even to the extent like Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff, I still think that Guardians of the Galaxy filled a void that the MCU had, which was the sci-fi, the space sci-fi aspect of it.
Right.
They introduced you to the cosmos and the interstellar stuff that was going on. Captain Marvel, I don't know what role it plays in the MCU other than to have the MCU have their first female-led movie, which, as you mentioned in one of the previous segments, should have been Black Widow and should have been years ago. So,
100%.
Captain Marvel really felt like a almost a knee-jerk reaction to DC getting Wonder Woman out there first, and Marvel saying, "Well, we have a strong female hero too," even though they had already established Black Widow. And so, it's not that it's a bad movie. I feel bad. I feel like maybe it comes off like I'm trying to bash it. I'm not. It's a good movie. I like Carol. I like the movie itself. I had a fun time with it. Just when you put it up against all these other movies, I feel like they all hold more weight as far as the overarching story of the MCU goes.
I agree with that. I mean, it's lower on my list too, just because I think with I don't know, kind of like you said, it didn't really have that MCU. There wasn't really a spark to it. There was no weight to it. There was like I saw it and I was like, it's a movie. It's fine. Mm-hmm. Like, like it wasn't necessarily bad. Like there was, I mean, that's the thing too. Like we're probably going to say a million times, like as we do this, all the movies are good.
Yeah.
Like in some way, there's something good about it. I don't think Iron Man 3 is good. Like I've literally watched that movie 3 times. I've given it 3 tries, and I've waited years in between them. And I find a way to dislike it more every time I watch it. Like every time. And I mentioned this to you before. Go back, guys, and watch the trailers for Iron Man 3 because they are incredible. Like they are literally when those trailers first dropped, I said to Rick, like, and we both agreed, like, this is going to be the Dark Knight of the MCU. That's what those trailers sold us. You had the Ben Kingsley Mandarin dialogue, the "You'll never see me coming" thing, and like the Malibu penthouse just falling into the water. All the stuff. It was epic. And then you watch the movie, and it's not that movie. It's just as bad as how everyone freaked out about the Drive trailers, the Ryan Gosling movie Drive. It was marketed like it was going to be like a Fast and the Furious action kind of movie, and then people went to the theaters and watched it, and it's absolutely not that kind of movie at all. It's a very slow burn, like kind of drama movie, like a thriller, and the movie is incredible. But people were like outraged by it because it's not what they were sold in the marketing, and like. Not that that's why I don't like Iron Man 3. It just leads to like my disappointment with it because it looked so good, and then you watch the movie and it just wasn't that good, But
so what about which one is on here that I have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 and you have Iron Man 3. That's where we differentiate, right? With these bottom ones.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Everything else we're spot on with, but if it makes you feel any better at all, Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is going to be showing up on my list very soon. Yeah, so Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is well, actually you'll just see here. Are you good? You want to move on to our 18 through whatever the numbers are going to be?
Yeah, I'll touch on Guardians when we see where you've got it. So
okay. Well, let's move this then. We're going to change this Soul Boy number 18. I apologize to everybody who has to sit and watch me type numbers in. I know this is the content everybody wanted, but
I'll go over Guardians while you're setting this up. So Guardians for me was again, broken record, a great movie, still a very good movie. It just it didn't have the originality of the first one. And so within the scheme of the entire MCU, it just didn't, that lack of originality that the first one had just pushed it further down the list. Kurt Russell as the Living Planet was an interesting concept, and I think they did about as good a job as they could have with it. It just didn't, hold my my interest as far as villains and things that is as some of the others on the list. So
I definitely felt they could have done more with it because like him, like, being the end of Star-Lord's mom essentially, and Star-Lord essentially being an Eternal at that point is like, or part Eternal. It's like a big deal, but then it's like they also like tied it to where like it was all tied to like Ego, like once Ego died, he's like no longer has powers and stuff, which like in all reality doesn't make any goddamn sense. It really doesn't make any sense at all. It's like if you were to murder your parents, or if your parents were to die, I guess that's a little bit it's not as dark, I guess, is because he killed his dad though, so that's why I said murder your dad. But if your parents die, they're still your parents. You still have their DNA in you, so it doesn't really matter that, biologically speaking, I don't care if he's some alien race, eternal superior being. He still effed Star-Lord's mom in some capacity, like, right? Like, Star-Lord, it was born, like, he still has his stuff in there. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And I mean, that's where Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I told you you'd see it real soon. It was my 18. So, and pretty much echoing everything you just said with it, it just was kind of granted, which I guess I should just finish typing my my list here.
It might have had one of the best, one of the funniest lines in an MCU movie. One of the top. Oh wow! Oh,
this is where we're gonna lose all our subs, man.
What did so let me go back to Guardians real quick. What was the I'm Mary Poppins, y'all?
Yeah.
What a great line. What a great setup, and then a great payoff to that whole part of that movie. But
there we go.
Ooh.
So this is why I was gonna say, before I elaborated more on Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 being so low, I'm not the biggest fan of Guardians of the Galaxy as a whole. Like, when that movie came out, like, people lost their shit for that movie. And I was just like, it's good. Like,
Yeah.
it's fine. And honestly, kind of like how it's literally how I feel about. I know I'm gonna probably catch a lot of flack for Black Panther being this low on the list, and that's why again I have to preface this. These are all good movies. Like, I don't know what else I have to say. They're all good movies. Like, they're all good. But what I think, the fact that Infinity War was being marketed, and they had to have T'Challa alive for Infinity War. He was already in the trailers, alive there in Wakanda. I think that hurt Black Panther, because that movie should have ended with Killmonger on the throne and T'Challa being presumed dead on a cliffhanger. That's how the movie should have ended. The whole third act was completely rushed. I think Ryan Coogler wanted to end Black Panther with Killmonger on the throne, because if you go back and watch the third act, it's just entirely rushed. Killmonger takes a complete 180 and no longer is a smart villain. He becomes a mustache twirling villain of just, once he gets the throne, is I want to kill everybody. It's completely out of character with how he's been the entire movie. They have the whole subway, terrible PS2 looking CGI fight scene down there. Like, the whole thing was super rushed, and I feel like I don't know if there's confirmation on this, and we'll probably never know, but I don't think that was what Ryan Coogler wanted to do. I think it would have made more sense and would have been probably top 3 of my movies if it would have ended with Killmonger on the throne and T'Challa being presumed dead. The whole third act, just the movie fell apart for me. It was just rushed. It didn't make sense because, like I said, Killmonger just completely 180'd his entire characterization, in my opinion. Like, he was no longer a smart, calculated guy out for vengeance. He turned into like a mass murderer, like in like 2 seconds, and just like for no reason. And then the whole, I don't even care that much about the terrible CG fight scene or anything that bad, but it just further reiterates my point that, like, it was all rushed. Like, and I don't think that was actually the vision they had for it, because they set up so much great stuff in Black Panther, and I'm excited to see what they're going to even do with Black Panther 2 at this point now, 'cause of the passing of Chadwick and everything. So it pains me to put it that low, but like I said, I'm trying to be objective here, and like, nothing's gonna like withstand the importance of that movie by any means, but like, I'm judging it as a movie as a whole, and in my opinion, they really squandered the third act. And like I said, had they ended that, man, if they would have ended that just like they ended, just if they had the balls to end the movie with him being presumed dead, like they had the balls to have Thanos win in Infinity War, that is easily probably my third best movie, 100%. Like, if not number 2, I would say, in all honesty.
It's amazing how much the ending, how much sticking that landing really counts for movies. Because you can have a great movie, and if the ending, I mean, we talked about this with the DC fandom thing, like ending with that Batman trailer made the whole event seem that much better.
Exactly.
You end a movie with a great, you have a great ending to a movie, and it can elevate a bad movie, or a bad ending can take down a great movie. So
100%.
I understand what you're saying. I don't necessarily agree with all of it, but again, are what they are. We'll talk more about why I think it succeeded when we get to it on my part of the list.
Well, what's your number 18? And then we'll get into some more.
So what's interesting, just real quick before we get to, is I think both of our number 16s, it's interesting to me that they fell where they did, because I think they're both going to be a couple controversial ones. Number 18 for me was Doctor Strange.
Oh, okay.
17 was, and I tell you what, let's flip this.
Oh,
Can
you're
you
doing
move
a flip.
Doctor Strange? Let's move him up a spot.
Okay.
We're going to do a flip right here based off of your insights into. So 18 now becomes Iron Man 3.
Oh,
I'm,
okay. So
I'm willing-
I've swayed you.
I'm willing to move it back down because you're right. The lack of any kind of reference to it, the lack of any weight as far as the MCU as a whole, really means Doctor Strange deserves to have that spot above there.
Okay.
Number 16. This one hurts me because I loved this movie so much when it came out, and I loved it for so long after it came out. And I still love it, but it didn't age as well as I had hoped. It's Marvel's The Avengers, the first Avengers.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's absolutely yeah, I think yours is going to get more hate than mine. Holy shit, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, that's shocking. Okay, I'm gonna have to hear why on that. Okay.
15, Spider-Man Far From Home.
Put a 1 there. Oh, so we got that in the same spot.
Is your Spider-Man?
It's Spider-Man 1 because I can't fit home. Oh, you said Far From Home. My bad. So you're Spider-Man 2.
Yeah, I'm going Far From Home.
So I don't have enough room to get it all on screen.
And then Ant-Man and the Wasp holding down 14 there.
We're pretty close then.
We are. Again, we've got what, 1, 2. Well, we've got one that's the same in this batch.
Well, yeah, you had GOTG2 though on as your 19. It's on 18 for me. So I mean, it's still pretty close. I'd say this is still pretty it's pretty close in some ways. So
I feel like I need to defend my Avengers again, subjective.
You probably
opinion.
do.
But here's my thing with Avengers 1.
Okay, let me hear it.
It's not that it's in any way a bad movie. It's not that. It is just that every other movie on this list is a better movie to me than that one.
Sure.
I watched every other movie that I've got ahead of it. I think is a better movie. I watched Avengers 1, so just some backstory here. My fiance, when we first started dating, she hadn't seen any of these, and it was right before Black Panther was about to come out, and of course, then Infinity War was coming out, and so I made her run the gauntlet and get caught up. And we started with Iron Man 1, and we ran through all the movies leading up to what was prior to Black Panther, Doctor Strange. I think that preceded Black Panther.
I think so.
So we ran through all of them up to Black Panther, and when we got to Avengers, I was real excited for her to see it, and we watched it, and she was very ho-hum about it. She said it felt long. She said it didn't quite capture her interest the way the other movies had, and I had a hard time arguing some of her points. And there's still the great scenes. There's a great, Loki, the Hulk beating down Loki, and Puny God, there's just some great beats in that movie. But overall, it feels a little long in the tooth. It just doesn't hold up as well. Maybe because I've seen other Avengers movies done better at this point.
It's actually shocking that you would have, because most people think the Avengers Black Sheep is Ultron. So like you inherently have Ultron higher than Avengers 1. So
yeah, and that's me being able to forgive some of the things. Like, I understand why people don't like Ultron. But the parts that people don't like, I can overlook pretty easily. Or at least my impression of the parts that people don't like, I can overlook pretty easily. Looking at this list, though, Spider-Man Far From Home, Avengers needs to go above that. I made a mistake there. There's no way Far From Home is a better movie than Avengers 1. So you can just flip a room 50 and 60.
I'll give you that one.
I'm not sure what I was thinking with that.
Well, see, it's funny. I have Spider-Man 1 down here, and I actually like Far From Home more than Homecoming, personally.
Okay.
I don't know why. Maybe it's just because I like Jake Gyllenhaal. I don't know. I really don't know. I like Tom Holland as Spider-Man. I like what the MCU has been doing with Spider-Man, but it's not that like Andrew Garfield's my Spider-Man by any means, but like I honestly prefer like the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and probably the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man 1 and 2 more than both of the MCU Spider-Man movies. I think they're better movies.
Yeah.
Like as a whole, like objectively, I think they're just better films. Not that the MCU Spider-Man movies are bad by any means. Like I think they're enjoyable. I don't know though. I don't know. They haven't captured me like that well.
I heard somebody say that the MCU Spider-Man movies they're lacking that part of Spider-Man's life where he's kind of a kid that's down on his luck and has a hard time in his personal life. They give that to Peter a little bit in those movies, but it's more kind of played off for laughs. I mean, he never has to worry about money. He's tied with Tony Stark so strongly. His suits and everything are through Stark.
Even his villains are tied to Tony Stark.
His villains are tied to Tony. So yeah, there's a certain the
even
some of the
suits,
and not that the movies need to be real angsty. It's almost like coming off the Andrew Garfield ones, which possibly were too angsty. They went too far the other way. Like they can't. They're like I like to see my Peter have some trouble and have some, but I also still like to see him, make jokes and quips and stuff. And so, they haven't quite nailed that balance completely for me yet.
Right, and that's the thing. Like I said, we're gonna say this a million times. They're good movies.
Yeah.
Like I will happily if I went over to someone's house and they were like, "You want to watch Spider-Man: Homecoming?" I'd be like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" Like, yeah, absolutely. Like when actually we went camping not too long ago up in a cabin, and they had just like 3 channels you can search on, and for whatever reason I think it was like TNT or something was playing Amazing Spider-Man 2 followed by Far From Home or Homecoming rather. And so like I watched them and like they're fine. Like I happily sat there and was like, well, I have 3 channels, so if I have this or the news, sure, I'd probably rather watch these 2 Spider-Man movies that like are probably my least favorite other than Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi one. But yeah, that's like bottom tier Spider-Man, but again, they're all okay. They're all watchable.
Bottom tier Spider-Man's better than 80% of the other stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So, and that's kind of how this entire list is. It's like I know people are gonna be hating on this list, but it's like I challenge you to go and make a list of 23 good movies and choose the worst of them, because you're gonna have to if you make the list. It's like 23 A's are still straight A's. Like it is what it is. So, but I think overall we're still pretty close on everything.
Yeah. Anything that I put on this list or anything I say about these movies in a negative light or a negative connotation is simply to justify why it isn't ranked higher than the movies that come after. It has nothing to do with me feeling like that's a detriment to that movie or that movie in some way failed. It's just that this was something that I felt about the movie, and this is why it's here instead of higher or above the movies I'm going to talk about later.
Yeah, because I mean that's the thing too. Like we're essentially comparing them to the other films, so it's in the end, it's just if you liked one thing, it could be one aspect, and like you said too, like the third act of Black Panther, like it didn't ruin the movie for me. I just felt it was a huge missed opportunity, and it took from the overall quality of the film, in my opinion. So like that's why I have to pull it down lower, because there's these other films that even Spider-Man 1 had a much more coherent first, second, and third act that like overall was a objectively, in my opinion, better movie. Like it's subjective that I think that, but in my opinion, the structure, the quality, and everything of Spider-Man Homecoming was like just objectively a better film than the ones that are further down the list.
Okay, so here's
subjectively, though. Subjectively.
So here's something we haven't done. our only one that in this grouping that's the same, Ant-Man 2. And while we're talking about it, you can go ahead and push Avengers up above Ant-Man 2. I'm not really sure how I got it down so low. I think in my head I was just remembering how disappointed I was that it wasn't as good as I remembered it. So anyway, so I think that's why it was ranked so low to begin with, and as we can see, it's now creeping its way back up the list.
But when we're done with this, you're gonna have it top 3.
It's gonna be number 1.
Yeah.
So Ant-Man 2, good movie. Played around with the same formula as the first one. I felt maybe a little too much.
Yeah.
And it introduced the Wasp character, which was fun, and I enjoyed seeing.
I liked what they did with Jane. Or Hope. Is it
Hope?
Hope.
Yeah.
I liked what they did with her. They made her like way more OP than Ant-Man, though. Like she was just Which the funny thing is, though, fun fact about your Avengers 1 and Ant-Man 2 and like the Wasp and everything, Joss Whedon, when he did his draft for Avengers 1, he initially had Wasp and the Black Widow role. He wasn't going to have Black Widow. He wanted Wasp. And then Kevin Feige was like, no, we need it to be Black Widow.
Wasp or Black Widow. And so
we got to do Black Widow. So he rewrote it all to be Black Widow instead of Wasp. So we could have had a completely different Wasp in every aspect. And Ant-Man could have even been completely different because Ant-Man hadn't even happened yet, so just the whole style of Ant-Man could be completely different if Wasp had been introduced in Avengers 1. Fun fact, but I'm glad it was Black Widow. I felt like it made more sense to me that it was Black Widow, but
sure. Yeah, I think Ant-Man 2 is a good movie. I think Paul Rudd's a great actor, and
I love Paul Rudd, dude.
He's able, you're just happy when he's on screen.
Oh yeah, absolutely. He like his lines in like Endgame when he pops up are always good. Like it's just what was it, Civil War? It's all good. Like I love Paul Rudd. He's great as Ant-Man and everything. He's great as Scott. I think the only thing that made Ant-Man 2 be lower than these other movies is just that it wasn't like the villain was just kind of bleh.
Sure. I hadn't actually thought about that deeply, but I think that's exactly, which is kind of funny because it holds a really important place in the overarching story. Like we just talked about in an earlier segment, it introduces the quantum realm, which becomes the crux of how they beat Thanos. So, like,
it's a big deal.
Important movie in the scheme of things, but
it was the stuff they did with Ghost I found like kind of lackluster, and then what's his name, Walter Goggins, like was just such a mustachy twirly villain guy. He just kind of showed up to move the plot along. Like he didn't really serve any purpose. He was forgettable. To no fault of his own, because Walter Goggins is great. And then like the Ghost thing was just kind of like it also just kind of like happened, and at the end they save her anyway, so everything like it was all just kind of for naught, kind of like what I always like. What one of my biggest problems, despite a lot of the other problems, but with like what was it, The Last Jedi, the whole casino thing just ends up being completely negated because the dude just turns on. So like it didn't matter. Like it was just a wasted screen time for the most part. The whole plot of the movie was like, oh, this is the bad guy, but it's like it's not really the bad guy. Ooh. And it's like, it's kind of boring. Like and just kind of, I don't know. Like people could have just done it differently. Not that it was bad. It was still good. I like seeing the movie. It was just, but it was a lot of like the same beats of the first one too. Like it really was.
I think Ant-Man 2 also suffered from the bar the Ant-Man 1 set.
Ant-Man 1
is really good, and I think that I think when I go to rank them, I remember how good it was, and Ant-Man 2 just didn't quite get there.
I'm actually moving something on my list right now. It's not that, but just so everybody knows, I've just made changes to my overall order. And this might change. That's my third. You've made quite a few changes too live here. I have the benefit of having a separate list that no one can see right now. So you don't know how many changes I've made, but I've made like 3. So just so you know. But all right, let's we'll get into the 13 to whatever it's gonna be, 7 or whatever. This is where it gets a lot trickier. And all my changes I've made off screen here have all been this upper half. I think I think it was. I think I don't think I've moved anything else around. Like it's all been this stuff. I'm still. I got a couple things up here, man, that I'm still questioning. So we'll see here. All right, guys. So I took the liberty of changing this list up for you off camera. So there was a cut there that you didn't see. The magic of filmmaking, right? So now you can see the full list, and we're gonna get into the rest of this right now. So without further ado,
Top
where are we at
13.
here? Top 13. And I say overall, though, especially now that you can see these 2 lists, though, we got a lot of this. We're pretty close, I'd say. Like
What would we say? 7 of the I don't know, bottom 10. We have the same.
Mm-hmm.
And just so everybody knows, I think you said this, but we don't know each other's list. We did not discuss this prior to.
Yeah, not at all. That's why I'm actually shocked to see so much of it be like as similar in a lot of ways as it could. How far am I going to go? 1, 2, 3, 4. I got one more. So, but this is where, in my opinion, though, this is subject to change. All of this is subject to change. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4. Did I go too many?
No, you're good.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay. So yeah, this is all subject to change, man. Like, I don't know. I really don't know. Like, this is just, at this point, you could probably flip flop any of these, and I wouldn't argue with it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and truthfully speaking, with most of these on the list, I really wouldn't argue about flipping any of them around. So I'm kind of curious what yours are, and then what are yours, so then we can kind of discourse it out.
We're getting close to kind of, for me at least, we're getting close to kind of a line where the quality of the movies is just jumps. There's an A tier and a B tier for the Marvel movies for me, and we're getting close to.
And B is still a passing grade, man.
And
everyone keep that in mind.
A B tier Marvel movie is
it's better than most.
Yeah.
Like, to be a B Marvel movie is not like being a B action movie from the 80s. Like, Commando is great. All right, I love Arnie, but it's not a good movie. You know what I mean? That's a B movie. But like these Marvel B movies are, I mean, hell, I'm a DC fanboy, and the Marvel B movies are just better than a lot of the DC movies anymore. Like, and it pains me to have to say it, but I like both. I'm trying to be objective here, and if you don't want to lie to yourself, like, it's just like, it's obvious. You know what I mean? It's a sad day when, like, honestly, like, if you really think about it, it's a little off topic, but I got to make the comparison because I brought it up. Like, Thor: The Dark World, even the Incredible Hulk, like, not Iron Man 3, but like, you could make the argument that 22 and up, like, they're better than BVS. You know what I mean? You could make the argument, and it'd be hard for me to argue it. As much as I love Ben as Batman, my favorite Batman, Henry Cavill is the best Superman, but like, as far as quality of film goes, I can't argue with. Like, if you were to come up and say, like, you know, the Incredible Hulk is better than BVS, and I'd be like, well, I might not really feel that way, but
you can see where someone would come up with.
I couldn't argue it. Like, it'd be hard for me to defend it. Like, I like BVS more, but can I say that, like, Captain Marvel, like, overall is like better, is worse than BVS as a movie? Like, which had more problems, you know? Like, if you actually start, like, looking at it objectively, you know, it's a tough call. That just speaks to the quality of the Marvel movies, you know? Like, More so than the lack of quality in like the other movies. It just speaks to the quality, you know. So what's your 13? Now that I got DC fans mad at us too.
13 is Spider-Man: Homecoming, Spider-Man 1.
Okay.
12 is Ant-Man.
Okay.
11, Guardians of the Galaxy.
Very close here.
10, Iron Man. We both had Iron Man in the 10 spot. And then my 9 is Thor, the first Thor.
Okay.
So
very close.
Yeah.
What else do we have? We had something else that was in the same spot too, didn't we? Or did you flip flop something? Our 16s were the same at one point.
16s were, I thought, were going to be our.
Oh yeah, because you had Avengers there. Yeah.
Controversial.
Right.
Spots, and then I started moving it up.
Yeah, then you second guessed it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But that's the thing. I can't argue with this list, man. Like I can't. I'm more surprised that like you have Guardians so high. But I mean, I guess it's not. It's only 14 on mine. So
I really like Guardians. I'm as much as I'm a huge comic book guy, but I've always like dipped my toes in the sci-fi, space sagas. Obviously, I'm huge into Star Wars, but I've even enjoyed most of the Star Trek films. And so Guardians gave me that in the MCU. And plus you just had, I think the Peter Quill character is just, he's such a lovable doofus.
True.
And oh God, why can't I think of his name? Andy from Parks and Rec. Chris Pratt.
Yeah.
Chris Pratt does such a good job with that character. I mean, just talk about perfect casting. That guy is just plays that part so well. And then you've got Rocket in there. You know, you introduce some of these more off the wall characters that you don't. They weren't really, you hadn't been exposed to in some of the other movies yet. And that movie is just, I mean, the whole joke about we're making this plan. I need you to get this. I need you to do that, and you get me that guy's leg.
Yeah, right.
He's like, I just wanted to see if you do it. I mean, just stuff like that. Just God, it was so well done, so well. It introduced those characters so well. The end of it, the dance routine, as cheesy. I'm fully willing to admit, yeah, it was a big hunk of cheese there, but it was still good. It still works. It's still funny. It doesn't take it over into that just ridiculous arena. So anyway,
have you seen the behind the scenes where Ronan actually dances back though?
Yes. Yeah.
That's good stuff. Yeah. No, and I totally agree with you with the Guardian stuff. Like I'm not the biggest fan of them, but like it just speaks to the quality of the movie overall as a whole. Like it was just so well done, and like I give James Gunn all the credit in the world to it. In all honesty, I don't think that movie would be what it is without James Gunn behind it. And everyone in the cast said the exact same thing about James Gunn, like when Disney just up and fired him for those tweets. You know, like everyone came to his defense because like they all know like that movie wouldn't be as successful as it was. It wouldn't have the same heart. It wouldn't have the same comedy. It would. I wouldn't want to. I truthfully don't even want to know a world where James Gunn didn't make the Guardians of the Galaxy movies because it'd be so different. Like, I don't know who could have done any better with that at all.
Such a tough concept to pull off, too. I mean, like Groot and Rocket and Drax, all those characters could come off as just cornball and really ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
But they don't. They come off as endearing and funny and, you know, actual characters and people that you care about and want to know more about. So,
and it also speaks to like I always use it as an example of like going back to DC, how everyone used to like say like when Justice League came out and the reason it bombed was because they didn't introduce everybody first. You know, they should have had the Flash movie and then the Wonder Woman movie and then the Batman movie and then, you know, whatever, make all these individual, then unite them. And then I always say, well, did they have to make a Star-Lord movie and a Drax movie and a Rocket movie and a Groot movie for you to understand what the Guardians of the Galaxy were? No, you didn't. You just need to make a good fucking movie. Like, that's it. Like, and like, it's a perfect testament. Is to just like you were kind of getting at, just like even the most obscure ensemble cast like can work if done right. You know, like because everybody knows who the Justice League is, and you don't need standalone movies to understand what the movie is being laid out in front of you. You know what I mean? It's all about the storytelling. And James Gunn just knocked it out of the park with those movies. Like the second one, like admittedly, like neither of us, we both have the second one fairly low on our list, but
Still,
still an enjoyable movie. Yeah.
So the ones that hurt me putting them where they were, and hurt is a maybe a little hyperbolic, but the having Thor and Iron Man at 9 and 10, Iron Man being 10, like really the 10th best movie, the movie that started all, the movie that got you all excited about the possibility of an MCU is all the way down at number 10. I mean but it also like that speaks to the quality of the movies above it, because that movie is so good. That movie holds up and is just infinitely rewatchable.
It's obviously the best of the Iron Man franchise. I mean, without question. I mean, both of us you have 3 higher than 2 somehow, but we both have them like pretty much bottom tier. I mean, both Iron Man 3 and 2 are literally in my bottom 5. So for them to be in bottom 5 of 23 movies and Iron Man being the first movie out the gate to still be in top 10, that speaks to the quality of that film. Like it like just that alone, that someone like me could have the other ones so far down to be like, boom, no, that's still top 10. That kind of speaks for itself. Captain America: The First Avenger. I don't. There's just better ones, is what I had to put it at 9. There's just ones I liked more. I think Captain America: The First Avenger and Thor are some of the most underrated comic book movies like in existence. Like that and Man of Steel, like are literally the most underrated and maybe underappreciated, I guess is a better word. Because I mean, I think Man of Steel is probably the most underrated, but probably just the most, I don't know, misunderstood, I would say. I don't know. There's a lot, I don't know, like Captain America: The First Avenger and then Thor are like, I mean, they're like top tier movies, man. Like they are so good. Like they are so good. The only thing that's bad about Thor is Chris Hemsworth's bleach blonde eyebrows. That's the only thing that's bad about that movie, is that they bleached his eyebrows blonde.
Which I never even noticed until you said something about it when we were talking about it like a couple weeks ago. And then of course I go and turn it on, and now that's all I can see.
Dude, now that I've told you guys that, you can't unsee it.
Go in and color correct his eyebrows for future releases, please.
Yeah, you can't. And it's not like it'll take you out of the movie, but now that I've mentioned it, if you didn't know it, it's the only thing you'll notice. Because if you go and especially if you juxtapose that to Thor: The Dark World or Thor: Ragnarok or any of the Avengers movies where he doesn't have bleach blonde eyebrows, it really stands out. Like once you notice it, you just can't unsee it.
Yeah, Captain America: The First Avenger. It did such a good job. I'm speechless. Here I am stumbling over my words because I'm speechless about it. It did such a good job establishing who Cap was, the heart of the character. I mean, it's so good that they take the "I can do this all day" line and just repeat it over and over in all of the movies, and you never get tired of it.
Nope.
You don't have that scene in Endgame where it's Cap strapping his broken shield to his arm, facing off against Thanos and the army behind him alone. You don't get that scene. That scene doesn't carry half the weight, a fraction of the weight it does, if you don't have the first Avenger movie. If you don't see this scrawny kid willing to give up everything just to do what's right. It's just, it sets the heart of the MCU, and it's just such a good movie. Like you said, so underappreciated.
Very underappreciated. That's the thing. Like with that and Thor, I don't think anyone thinks they're bad. I mean, we both have them, like both of those movies at number 9. So and you obviously have First Avenger higher than what I do. I obviously have Thor higher. Like, but that just speaks to like you just don't hear anybody talk about it. Everyone always talks about the Avengers. Everyone talk. It's like they're forgotten. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
No one forgets about Iron Man 1.
Hmm.
Everyone can like look back and they'll talk about Iron Man 1. It's the one that started it all. You know, whatever. But like, I very
I
underappreciated.
I feel like Captain America at the time, um, because it was a period piece, and I think that even to this day, not even just at the time, but even to this day, I think because it's a period piece, I think a lot of people have a harder time. Modern movie audiences seem to have a harder time with period pieces. They just don't seem to connect as well as things said in modern day. Um,
Right.
and then Thor, I think Thor kind of, I don't know why, but I think Thor was not as big of a name or a character, a draw as Iron Man and Captain America. So I did, box office wise, I don't think it did as well as either of those movies.
It didn't.
Um,
The Thor
and,
movies have been some of the least financial altogether, aside
and
from
Chris,
Ragnarok.
yeah, and Chris Hemsworth was not as big of a name prior to Thor as, I mean, that I can't think of what Hemsworth did beforehand. Before that, I mean, that was kind of his breakout role, right?
Yeah, I mean, he really had only the biggest thing he did prior to that was Kirk's dad in the first Star Trek movie, in the just the opening
Okay.
scene. Like that was
Okay. Yeah.
like pretty much his biggest role. I might be
Yeah.
forgetting something, but that I think that was his biggest like role prior, and that was
So,
just the first 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
so you've got when Thor opens, you've got Natalie Portman as the big draw name for that movie, and this relatively unknown Chris Hemsworth, and he embodied that part so well. God, the scenes in the diner where he wants
Oh
more
yeah,
meat
dude,
and smashing the
that's
cups,
so
and
good.
and then the just the emotional weight he brought to it with finding out that Loki betrayed him, and then of course, and here I buried the lead, Tom Hiddleston. I
Yep,
mean,
that's
what
the
a
biggest breakout. And like, talk about
right?
stealing a movie. Talk about stealing a
Oh,
cinematic universe. Like
so
literally,
good.
Loki, like Tom Hiddleston, the way he portrayed Loki was enough to carry on like up to Endgame, like literally being almost the focal point of the. I mean, pretty much the big bad of the Avengers movie,
Yep,
like,
definitely.
and all the way through Endgame, like he just side character Thor's brother, essentially, just like boom. Like it's all credit to Tom Hiddleston because if that movie if the first Thor movie comes out and Loki is just kind of a mess side character,
Throwaway villain. Yeah.
then like the MCU is completely different than it is now.
Where
Like
do you go for where do you go for that first Avengers movie? If you can't go with him, do you try and shoehorn Red Skull back into it somehow? Which direction do you try and dredge up one of the
mhm.
Iron Man villains? It's.
And then you lose out on so much too, so much impact in Infinity War when Loki dies to Thanos,
Yeah.
and everything, all the,
Yep.
all the Thor stuff, and like you lose out on so much if they didn't nail both Thor and Loki and their relationship altogether.
Yep.
Like so, like big credit to Kenneth Branagh for the Thor movie, in my opinion, because like without that movie, like it really because a lot of people say that like the Avengers, the first Avengers movie, really set the stage as to what the MCU is because you can like when you watch, and I'll probably get into it when I get into the Avengers, but like all of them, like leading up to the Avengers, like Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, the First Avenger, they all very much had, and I guess you could say Incredible Hulk, but like that one even more so than the other ones, but they all had their own identity. Like each of those movies are completely like individual and standalone, completely different tones. And then you bring them all together in the Avengers, and that Avengers movie has set the stage for what the MCU was going forward ever since. Like
Yep.
once you watch the Avengers movie and you get that tone, it's like literally like that's pretty much where they did Control C, Control V for all their movies. Was from the Avengers on. Like
Yeah.
that has been what they have been recapturing, which is just more credit to Joss Whedon at that point for actually just pretty much knocking that movie out of the park. Because without that movie, much like without Loki being good, I mean, where's the MCU at if the Avengers bombed? If the Avengers came out
Oh
and
yeah.
was as divisive as BVS was, where's the MCU at? You know what I mean?
You go back to the drawing board, and then you start wondering: do you just do standalones because those were what were successful? And
Exactly.
yeah.
So, and then the only other thing is we both have the Spider-Man at 13. I got the sequel higher up than you have the original. But I mean, we're pretty much even on how we feel about Spider-Man, though. Like overall, they're in the same like 4-movie window.
Yeah. Just for me, Homecoming, I felt like the Michael Keaton character, the Vulture, was a better villain than I love Jake Gyllenhaal, and I think he did an excellent job with the part he had. But I felt like, I felt like the Vulture had a, and
here's the thing. I liked it more than just because Spider-Man 2 was Far From Home was more Peter's story, whereas I felt Homecoming was more Iron Man, Tony. It was Tony and Peter, whereas like Tony really wasn't in Homecoming. So that's what, if I had to give anything of why I think Far From Home, because I do agree with 100%. I didn't mean to interrupt, because I do agree 100% that Vulture is a superior villain to Mysterio. But I've always loved Mysterio from the comics. I never thought we'd see him on screen, so I was kind of just happy to see him like be on screen. So that was kind of cool. And they got someone like Jake Gyllenhaal to play him, so that was also pretty cool. But my takeaway from Far From Home, the only reason I have it higher is because it felt to me like more kind of like what you were saying. It was just like you want more like Peter being like Peter. I felt like we actually kind of got that in Far From Home more so than Homecoming. But
okay, yeah, I could see that. Homecoming also for me at least had the reveal that the Vulture's daughter was the love interest of Peter. I can't remember her name.
That was a nice thing too that I didn't see coming.
I didn't see it coming. They got me with that, and I'm kind of a sucker for movies that are able to subvert my expectations a little bit like that. So
they did kind of cheat though, because no one expected no one just innately expects like a mixed race. That's what did it.
They definitely played off of the stereo of
they did
like inherent biases. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Not that I fault them for it, and I don't like, oh, you got me, you darn. But it was like it was good because it definitely subverts your expectations, because like it just worked in their benefit. Like they didn't want you to think that day. More power to them.
Yeah, well done.
Good.
Tip my hat to them.
And even if it wasn't like a mixed marriage or whatever their relationship was, I probably still wouldn't have seen that coming. Like in all honesty, that just it just more for that's what got a lot of people with it. It's like because no one expects it. Like no one just innately expects it, or even this fucking 2020. It's just like no one expects it. Like, but I thought that was funny when it happened, because like I definitely didn't see it coming, and like I thought it was a nice twist. It added more weight to it because it added he's not just a bad guy. Because that was one thing too. Vulture wasn't just like a bad guy. They always like people would call he was like a blue collar criminal, because he lost his job because Tony. Like he did the cleanups, and like now Stark's doing all the cleanups. Now he has no work, so he's like, well, what am I gonna do now? Like,
I mean, when put in that, he was a relatable. I mean, the best villains are always relatable. If you were put in that same situation, if you were, if you lost your job and you're left trying to provide for your family, wouldn't you skirt the bounds of what's maybe legal, or
wouldn't you build an alien tech Vulture costume and go terrorize and steal? Absolutely, you would.
All right, come on. Let's be honest, I just do that for fun. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Nothing to do with providing for my family,
right? But no, I mean, otherwise, the only thing here that I'm seeing too is we have Doctor Strange in vastly different places. Not like super far off, but
for 23 movies, they're five places, 5 spots apart. That's significant.
Yeah, and like with me, for one, Benedict Cumberbatch is one of my favorite characters, and for two, I love Doctor Strange. Like that, like I've said this like 5 times, but to juxtapose that, like one of my favorite characters in like DC is Dr. Fate. And I always like correlate the two as like they're the big sorcerer dudes, and I like sorcerer stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I play fantasy games. You know, I play in World of Warcraft. I play a mage. You know, like I like, but I mean, I play more than just a mage. But I started out playing a mage. You know, I just have always liked that stuff, and what they were actually able to do with Doctor Strange, I didn't think they'd really be able to pull it off. Like, in all honesty. So the way I'll give them the Dormammu stuff could have been a little bit better, but I also was fine with it.
Oh, see,
Like,
I was just about to jump in and say, or I guess I am jumping in and saying that was I have a hard time. That was top 5, maybe the best top 3 ending to a superhero movie ever, because it doesn't end with a punchy, kicky, shooty fight.
right.
It ends with him outsmarting the guy. He just,
Yeah.
Dormammu, I'm here to bargain. And,
Yeah. It's
just
great.
it's so good. Such a clever way
Yeah.
to end that fight, and not, again, talking about MCU and subverting your expectations. It's not him having a big mystical fight with this guy. He just simply outplays him.
Mhm.
He says, I'm calling your bluff, and you know what? You're going to give in to me, and I'm going to, and it's not even a fight. It's so good.
Yeah, I know, I totally agree. The only thing I didn't like his, like, the almost like the motivations behind Dormammu. He kind of just was like this big bad guy who's just there. I wish they would have, like, just kind of, like, flushed him out a little bit more. 'Cause Dormammu's he's a BFD, like, in all
Yeah.
reality. Like, and I
Sure.
felt like they could have played it up a little bit more. And
Mhm.
like the ending of it, I totally agree. Like how he ends up just outwitting him, I really
Yeah.
liked. Because they already
Yeah.
did all the crazy, sorcerer fighting stuff with Mads Mikkelsen's character. You know, they were
Yep.
jumping into the mirror realm, fucking Inception buildings, everything. They did enough of that stuff. Like, they didn't need to have, like, Dormammu actually break through onto this realm and start wrecking the planet. Like, it's just like that's boring too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I just wish, like, he introduced Dormammu and he's just gone now. But he's also like an Avengers level threat in some ways. So I just feel like a little bit of it was wasted, but I really don't know what else he would have done with him at the same time. So
Doctor Strange is lower on my list, and as we're talking about, I'm now rethinking and feeling like it could jump up, maybe closer where you have it. But it was a victim of timing in my hierarchy, and what I mean by that is we had just seen Inception, what, a year or 2 years prior to Doctor Strange coming out, and then you have these visuals of the cities folding in on itself and unraveling, and then you get to Doctor Strange and you get some of that same imagery, and it doesn't have that wow impact that you got and so
the scale
it's
was
not
different.
that it's not that there was a problem with it. It just suffered. It didn't have that wow factor to it that it would have had it been prior to Inception.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Um,
That was one thing where it was like I still liked what they did with it because it was different enough for me to where it didn't feel like. Because even in, like, Inception, if at least as far as comparison goes, it wasn't really the same aesthetically. Like,
sure.
as far as the buildings, it was cleaner in Inception, and it wasn't used as much in Inception, so when you saw it in Inception, it was more of that wow factor, and within Doctor Strange, when it was like that on steroids, it
Yeah.
was like it's constantly happening, and on top of the buildings flying all over each other, we're gonna make portals, and we're gonna do this, and I'm gonna shoot you through, like, 10 different dimensions, and, like, I don't know, I just like that stuff, so I
Yeah.
kinda ate all that up, like, so I don't know. That's pretty much, I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add on these ones. We can go we can go into our next 5, but this is where it starts getting rough, so we'll see. All right, so we're gonna get into this top 8 here, but we're gonna do our next 5 and finish the finale with our top 3. So here we go. Here we go.
it's like waiting for the release of one of the new Marvel movies, seeing what comes up here.
Yeah.
Thor. Uh-huh.
This is where like it really got complicated.
Oh, it gets tough, yeah.
This is where it all this is where it gets complicated, man. There we go. That was it. That's it. That's what I went with.
All right.
That's what we went with for now.
All right.
What do you got?
Number 8, Age of Ultron. So another one, same ranking. Number 7, Captain America: The First Avenger.
All right.
Number 6, Thor: Ragnarok.
And this is I was similar with Thor: Ragnarok. I didn't know where I wanted to put it, but I really love that movie.
Number 5, Captain America: Civil War.
Okay.
And number 4, Black Panther.
That's probably our biggest.
It is, I think so.
That's our biggest differentiator there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I thought Iron Man 3, but no, it's definitely Black Panther, our biggest.
Yours is at 16, mine's at 4. That's a 12-spot difference.
Mm-hmm.
So Black Panther. So there's a couple things with Black Panther. The movie you've talked about with it ending with Panther being presumed dead and Killmonger.
I love that movie. The movie in my head, I love it.
In my head too, I'm thinking that's probably a better movie.
That's probably number 2. I'm telling you, that's number 2 on my list.
And not only is that an amazing movie, the follow-up to that movie is effing insane.
That's what I'm saying, good. Dude. You find out he's alive.
Him clawing his, no pun intended, but clawing his way back up to retake the throne, and and Killmonger, slowly building out the Wakanda, and that's a tremendous. That being said, with the movie is what we have, the movie we have is what it is, and I think it's a damn near perfect movie. It doesn't tie into the rest of the MCU as strongly as some of the other movies on the list. But I think that it does an incredible job of creating a fictional Wakanda. Wakanda is a living, breathing world that exists, and it's something that you don't see in any other genre or any other movies that are out there. All the other movies, the superhero movies, don't have. It's almost like Krypton in the Superman movies. It's this mythical place that you only get glimpses of, and I just love what they did with Wakanda.
It's very much its own character.
Yeah. I think Killmonger is one of the greatest on-screen villains ever. I can see where you're coming from with his motivations at the end of the movie, but just the way he plays everybody and plays his role and gets himself where he wants to be, and his motivations for why he wants to do it are just so good. And it's just such a great movie. And to be honest, it was a couple spots lower for a while, and I moved it back up. It may even move up higher depending on the history and further down the road. The more I think about it, but knowing now what we know about what Chadwick Boseman was going through, the guy had cancer, and he knew he had cancer when they were filming, or he found out. I mean, from everything we've heard, he found out when they were filming Civil War. So going into this movie, it wasn't like this was something new. He wasn't really dealing with the effects of it. He had to have been deep into treatments or at least having started treatments for this, and for him to give the performance he gives, and for him to not, there's no inclination that he toned down anything for the movie, and just my appreciation for him and his what he did, what he had to go through to film this, not only this, but the movies that come after this is just unbelievable. I can't imagine what he personally dealt with and the kinds of things that he had to endure to fulfill his role in these movies. And so
he's a rock star, dude.
That alone pushes it up the list a little bit for me. But just by itself too, the movie is just, I think it's just incredible.
I only differ with it just because, like I said, even like if you were like first black led superhero movie, like again, like it's fucking 2020, and that was the first one we've gotten, and like nothing's gonna, like, it being so low on my list doesn't take away from the importance of that, or like
the cultural aspect of it is.
It's incredible. Yeah. And then even with, us learning that, he was essentially pretty much the entire time he was Black Panther battling cancer. That just goes to show you, that speaks more to the character of Chadwick Boseman than it does than anything. So, sure. I mean, that's a tremendous loss for both, everybody close to him, obviously, but then tremendous loss just in character, to someone with his strength and character in general, this big loss to the Marvel everybody. But I'm just I tried to look at it just objectively. I'm not a Marvel fan. That's what I tried to let's say I'm not a Marvel fan. I'm just looking at these movies. This is what I would say. Because Black Panther is probably arguably the coolest character, and the way he's introduced in Civil War, he's fucking dope, dude. He literally. That was the coolest thing about Civil War, was Black Panther's story arc within it, because you had the stuff going on with the Sokovia Accords and the Avengers doing their, Civil War essentially, but then Black Panther had his own arc within this movie, and first time you ever see him, first time he's introduced to the MCU, has his own story arc that's arguably cooler than what's going on in Civil War altogether. And he literally just cuts his own path right through that entire movie, and just literally upsets the plot in the exact same way. Black Panther was almost the star of Civil War, in some ways. It was literally the best part of that movie. In a lot of ways. He probably really was the best part. It's been a little bit since I've seen it, but now that I'm thinking about it, Black Panther was 100% the driving force behind Civil War. Yeah,
the emotional ending of Cap and Bucky and Iron Man and their conflict at the end of that movie, I think, leaves you with the impression that movie was more centric on them. But you're right, Black Panther plays just, without him, the movie doesn't hold nearly as much weight. It doesn't. Oh, yeah. He plays such a big part of that movie, and I think for me, that's reflected in those rankings. They're back to back, and depending on which one I saw last, you could move Civil War up and put Black Panther down a spot. Those two are almost interchangeable to me, as far as that goes. Black Panther 2, I will admit, growing up, Black Panther, when I grew up, coming up, I had a lot of my buddies and stuff were into a lot of rap, early rap, like NWA and Ice Cube and Eazy-E and stuff. And a lot of the first movies that I saw, my parents were very strict, you couldn't watch rated R movies. So I'd go over to friends' house after school and watch things like Boys in the Hood and Menace to Society and stuff. And so there's some cultural stuff there that, had touchstones for me in the Black Panther movie, that just, the whole beginning of it with the inner city stuff and his the gun trades and stuff was just, I don't know. It just gave me some of that same feels from some of those movies that I really enjoyed when I was a kid. So there's a personal aspect to it too, that it touched something from my childhood that I think, you know, makes it higher on the list for me than maybe some of the other movies.
No, I totally agree with that. It had that. Just goes to say too, like we were saying, like the culture impact that movie had in general.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4 is a respectable. I'm sure for most people, it's probably more along the lines of gonna be, you know, higher tier, like on your list as opposed to my list. Like I'm only looking at it as like I don't know. A lot of times when like I said, I try to look at them more like with all movies, not just like the MCU movies by any means. But like I try to look at them like just strictly objectively, like okay, well, what did I like? What didn't I like about it? And like what did those negatives take away? Did the negatives outweigh the positives? The positives outweigh the negatives, you know? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and like, I try to, I don't know. I try to, cause I mean, Spider-Man is my favorite Marvel character. Like, probably hands down. Like, I don't know, like, he's probably yeah, Spider-Man would definitely be my favorite Marvel character. But I can't let that sway any of this list. Like, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, I can't do it. Like, it's just like the movies were the movie. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, it makes it tough though when like especially this upper part. This whole damn list was hard to make, and you could honestly, like I've said before, you can move most of these around and put them in any order you want, and I probably wouldn't argue with it. Like
Yeah.
I don't argue anything with your list besides Iron Man 3. That's it. Like that's the only one I'm like, that's pretty high up there, man. I don't know. But no, I mean, other than Black
Yeah.
Panther, we're like pretty spot on here. And I know I'm gonna get a lot of flack probably for one, Endgame being not number one for because or like not number two, and then Thor Ragnarok somehow being higher than Endgame. Like
See, I feel like these top 5 movies, um, maybe even top 6 movies for me. I feel like I need 6 number 1 spots to put these movies in because that's how good these movies. I mean, like I said I felt bad that I couldn't put Iron Man higher, considering it was the one that kicked it all off. It was such a good movie. I feel bad I don't have Thor Ragnarok higher. That movie is so good.
I know, and that's the thing, dude. As a complete movie, Thor. That's why I have it higher than Endgame because as a whole, I think Thor Ragnarok's a better movie. Like just as a whole, I think for one, the way Taika Waititi coming in and just completely grabbing the Thor franchise and just shaking it up, like literally, and just making it's very much a Taika Waititi Thor movie. Like that movie would not exist if Taika Waititi was not the director of that movie. Like it just wouldn't have happened. Much like Guardians of the Galaxy wouldn't be what it is now. But the way they like leaned into like because Thor had always had some humor with him, but man, they just leaned into that, and it all worked for me. I loved the Hulk stuff. I love the world they set up. I loved Grandmaster. I just like it. The movie did not bore me at any point in time. I've it's one of the Marvel movies like that I've probably seen more than any of the other ones. Like, and I don't mind watching it. Like, it's just it's a movie you can put on repeat just forever. And I just like everything that they did. Everything's good. Like I don't know. I don't have. There's literally nothing in that movie I think is a negative, and it's honestly, despite all the humor involved in it, it's dark as fuck. Like
Yeah.
if you look past you take your blinders off and just like get past the Taika Waititi humor, like he loses his hammer, he loses his eye, he loses his planet, like he loses like everything in that movie.
Yeah.
Like
Oh yeah.
he goes through some shit, but like
His dad.
yeah, his dad died. Like he literally
Yep.
loses everything. Like
Yep.
he has to sit there and witness Hela literally like before the planet blows up, she's just murdering everybody, like all of his fellow Asgardians. Like it's just it's darker than you think it would be, and then people like really give it credit for it because it has so much humor in it. But that's just again more credit to like Taika Waititi. And like with Avengers Endgame, I don't really know if we could have had a better follow up and like kind of like bookend to these 23 movies and Avengers Endgame. But there were some things where like it just kind of it's a great movie, and I could watch the portal scene over and over and over again. Like the last act, we were talking about last acts. Like that last act, it might be 100% fan service, but it's
Yeah.
great. Like
Yeah.
it's great to watch. Like when Cap got Mjolnir, dude. Like, oh man, being in the theater when that happens, man. Like, whoo, there's ooh.
There are moments that I will never forget in movies, and that is right there at the top. You know,
100%.
I remember as a child watching Christopher Reeve Superman dive out the window of the Daily Planet and switch into his Superman costume. And I still can see it. It's like just embedded there on my brains and on my retinas. And the same thing with that hammer, that hand going down and picking it up, and that hammer flying at Thanos and then flying backwards and landing in Cap's arm. I mean, it's just incredible.
It's amazing, and you don't see it. It's another thing where you just don't actually see it coming at first, and partly because too, to give credit, because just before in Thor Ragnarok we saw Mjolnir get destroyed. Yes, we know he goes back and gets it, but the fact that we know it was just destroyed, you're not thinking about it. Like, I mean, part of it was you're not really thinking about it. Like Thor's, he's dual wielding both of them, and he's fucking a badass and shit, all overweight with his Viking beard and shit. But like, you're not thinking about it, and like, and then when it happens, you're just like, oh dude, and then it's so good. It's so good.
The smack down on him. He just,
it's great.
Oh,
man. And then there's this scene. I'm trying to pull it up right now too. Hold on. You can keep talking while I pull this up.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump back for just a second. Thor Ragnarok. Not only is the movie just impressive, one of the things that we didn't get mentioned, I don't think it mentions enough about it, is that movie has some incredible visuals. There are some Thor with the lightning and coming down at the end of it, and just some of the visual scenes that he pulls off is just, I can't think of a more visually stimulating movie, if that's the right description.
That's a good description.
That movie is just so great as far as the visuals, in addition to everything else.
Oh, I totally agree. But then, going back to Endgame, this shot, along with the when this shot comes up, Cap America, last guy standing, essentially.
He straps the shield.
He straps it up, and he's going to town. Like he doesn't give a shit. He sees the army.
I can do this all day.
It's just Cap versus, and he doesn't stop, dude. Like chills, man. Chills.
And then I just got chills now. And then on your left.
On your left.
How perfect.
Yeah, another callback to Winter Soldier. Like, you know what I mean? It's like that, and that was what I was saying too. Like the movie that last act might be all fan service, but it's all great. You know, sometimes fan service isn't bad. Like, you know what I mean? Like people like to give fan service like it's like a bad thing. But like, when it's done right, like who didn't want to see Cap whipping some ass with Mjolnir, dude? Like, who didn't want to see that? You know what I mean? Like fan service, sure, but it also fit the story pretty well.
Who didn't want to see Pepper show up in the Iron Man rescue armor? Who didn't want to see every character? Who didn't want to see Scarlet Witch get some small amount of revenge on?
Oh yeah, and just fucking wrecks him too, dude.
Yeah, she would have taken him down had the ship not started bombarding everybody. I mean, but you again, they play so well off of. I mean, we haven't even gotten to where I have it on my list, but it plays so well off of everything that came before. It doesn't. It doesn't cheat. It doesn't say well, this happened before, and so this should mean so. It doesn't tell you something happened, and it didn't. You've seen everything that happened before, and oh man, it's just so good.
It's great. Like it's honestly, And that I think I struggled the most with Endgame and Ragnarok, and where I wanted to put them.
Okay.
It would have been 4 or 5. Like, and then I maybe like there was an argument to be made that like I could maybe move Ragnarok to 6 and Civil War to 5 and Endgame to 4. Maybe like those 3, you could honestly. Tomorrow I might change it. You know what I mean? Like I don't care. Really, honestly, the next top 6, I don't really care where you put them. Maybe number 1. I think number 1's been like my constant since I saw it. So I don't know, but like these, I know these 3 for sure. I could probably move around, and like I wouldn't really care. Like I really probably wouldn't care. Like I don't know. I just like Thor more than the other ones. I mean, I just like Thor as a character a lot. Like so that's. I mean, obviously, like I got fucking Ragnarok in number 4.
Yeah.
So, like I think they've done a really good job with Thor. Like despite Thor: The Dark World, I almost have Thor: The Dark World down there. Almost just because it's like so many other people think it's the fucking worst MCU movie that like I can't really argue it. But like I don't really mind it. Just like you have Incredible Hulk at the bottom, but like it's like I like watching that movie. I think it's still pretty good. Like I would have loved to have seen Edward Norton actually follow that movie up. Because like I really actually liked the Incredible Hulk movie. It's not like an MCU movie, but if Edward Norton could just do what he wanted to do with the Hulk movies, I'm interested in seeing it. Like
I'd watch a sequel to it.
Yeah, like it's completely independent of the MCU. Like I'm all for it. Like I'd love to see it. Like, and I just think I never really talked too much about it, but with Thor: The Dark World, it's just I feel like they just could have done so much more with it. Like Malekith and the Dark Elves, they just made just to be like they literally made them just kind of like mustache really. You never understood their motivations the entire time.
Sure, and I think the lack of a strong villain is what hurts that movie the most.
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah,
for sure.
But. And even with the lack of a strong villain, you know, Hemsworth is so good in that role, and Portman's good, and Natalie Portman's pretty good in that role. So you know, even with that, they still elevate that movie and make it a really enjoyable.
Yeah, and again, Tom Hiddleston, like they all carry the movie. Like without them in the movie, I mean, it would have been substantially worse, sure. But like, I don't know. And so this is hard. You want to get into these top 3s? Let's get this all wrapped up.
Yeah. Let's. I'm trying to take a quick look here and see. We just did the 5. So, okay. So Age of Ultron, we didn't actually touch on.
We didn't talk about that at all. We have that at the same spot too.
So yeah. So a lot of people, I still hear a lot of people give that movie crap, and
I like it.
I love that movie.
You know what the best part of that movie is? When they're all at the dinner party.
Yes.
Like I would watch 2 hours of that. It's like I really
just
would.
Chatting, and they trying. You know, we just talked about it, but Cap, you know, you get the seed of Cap picking up Mjolnir later. Right. But yeah, that's such a good scene. And
I love James Spader too, so like I was really excited for him to come in and be Ultron to do the voice and everything, and he did the mocap too, so it was good. I liked it.
That
honestly.
Gets knocked for all the. I think for all the. It's not even Easter eggs for all the stuff it does to set up Ragnarok and set up the movies that were coming after it. You know, there's even the complaints like, you know, they pull Thor off the table to go to that bath and figure out that something's coming. And yeah, that hurts the movie to an extent, but everything else around it is so good. Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, great characters. Mm-hmm. Really good characters, really enjoyable. Quicksilver's death, completely unexpected.
Yeah.
They got me. I figured, you know, you're adding Quicksilver. He'll be around for a while.
Well, then we got Hulkbuster too.
Hulkbuster armor, yep. Yeah, such a
nice.
Good. I really like that. I really, really like that movie. And I almost bump it up higher just because of the hate it gets from other people. Right. I guess I'm a little petty that way, but I liked it so much. I never understood why it got so. I mean, I understood it to an extent, but I was like, I think people are being overly critical of that movie. I think it's really good.
I think so too. I don't think it's a bad movie by any means at all. I think it's good. Honestly, I think the fact that we both have it at 8 speaks volumes as to how good it is. Like,
Yeah.
because I mean, yeah, there's things that come above it, but at the same time, I mean, I
feel
don't
like
know.
it naturally grows the conflict between Tony and Steve. You know, you don't just go from them kind of having a hard time with each other in Avengers to Civil War, where they're completely on the opposite side of each other, without seeing the conflict that they have in Age of Ultron, and have that grow naturally instead of just being forced.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I the only thing I don't like about Age of Ultron, it was like, I don't know, it's a little lackluster. It's like the third act's kind of lackluster. Like Ultron's whole plan of like dropping Sokovia, essentially just kind of like, okay,
Yeah.
there's not a better way to do that. You don't got like a bomb or something. Like, why you got to drop a planet? Like, I just feel like, or not drop a planet, but drop a chunk of land.
Man.
Seems like a very inefficient way of causing a global event. Like, I don't know. It's just that's just me.
I agree. One last thing on Ultron. That also maybe one of the coolest visual shots of the entire MCU, when in the beginning they're all fighting those, and you have that one team shot where they're all just
flying through,
lining up. Yeah,
that's
just
good stuff.
really.
Well, then it was also, we got Vision picking up Mjolnir as well. Like Vision
That's
being
right.
born, and then him just picking up the hammer just nonchalantly. Like, here you go.
Yep.
So then it's like right away, you know, like, well, this dude's chill. Like, he's got to be chill. Like, so I mean, that was pretty good.
That was great.
And talk about good casting, though. I don't think Paul Bettany gets enough credit. Like,
No.
Yeah, he's great as Vision.
Oh, God, can you? It still astounds me to this day that they were so forward thinking that they thought, we're going to cast this guy to be the voice. He's going to be the voice Jarvis through what, 5-6 movies before we ever develop him into a actual on-screen character.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I think that's just more of a credit to like Kevin Feige and the writers' creativity, because they've said that wasn't something they initially had planned. Like they didn't say like Jarvis was going to be Vision. It was just they naturally thought like about, like, I remember Paul Bettany telling a story before he like actually got cast as Vision. Like he pretty much just got out of a meeting or a call with his agent, who essentially told him that like your career's dead. Like you're like no one's like, not in like a shitty way, but like this is how he tells the story. Essentially, like you're pretty much done. Like there's not, you know, like you've reached an age where like you don't fit like a leading man anymore. You know, like calls aren't coming in, whatever. Like you can look this up. Paul Bettany says it and stuff. And then right when he gets out of this meeting with his agent or on the phone or whatever, he gets the call from like Marvel or Kevin Feige or something, who says like, you want to be Vision? Like, you know, we're thinking about making Jarvis like your voice. Like we're gonna do the Vision. Like you want to be Vision? Like, and he's just like, ha! It's literally like as soon as he comes out, he's like getting a new manager. Like, but like, so it's like boom. So it's really
that's awesome. I'm gonna have to go look that up.
Yeah, but look, he obviously tells the story much better than I do. But like, it's pretty much what I just said. Like, it's pretty accurate. So, yeah, but it is great. Let's get. You got anything else you want to add, or you want to get into these? Actually, guys, we're gonna call it right here. So we'll do the top 3 some other time. All right. You know, go to Honest. I'm just kidding. Well, let's get into this top 3 and wrap this up. I'm curious.
Should we do you 3, my 3, you 2, my 2, or do you want to go 3, 2, 1 on you and then 3, 2, 1 on me?
I'll do. Let's do the 3.
Okay.
I got Avengers there.
Okay.
Avengers.
So 3 for me is Endgame.
Okay. Then I think our number 1 is the same.
Our 2s and 1s are the same.
I think so.
I mean, we've only got 2 movies left on each of our lists, and they're the same 2 movies.
I'm gonna say why I have it, because Avengers is gonna be our other big jump. That's our other big jump here. That's 11, and then Black Panther was 12. I have, and I kind of touched on it before, with what they did with Avengers 1 has literally set the tone for every movie that's came out. Not just the Avengers movies, literally the tone of the Avengers. Joss Whedon set the stage with the first Avengers movie for what the MCU has been ever since. Like, because like I said, if you watch Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, First Avenger, they are all completely different movies. They all have different tones. They're standalone. Like, you wouldn't even like think they could or would or should be connected. But then you see Avengers, completely different tone than all three of those movies, but they found a way to maintain each character's identity and bring them together in such a way, and for one, make it work, which no one thought it could ever work. Like making any movie on that scale with all these different characters and everything, no one thought it was going to work. But they were able to do that in such a way, craft a compelling story, and execute one in such a way that the Avengers has literally been the blueprint for every single Marvel movie coming out that has came out since, in some capacity. Like,
I'll take it a step further. I think the Avengers movie and the success of the Avengers movie. You gotta remember at that time when that movie came out, that broke box office records that had been held by Jurassic Park, right? For biggest. Well, no, it broke Jurassic. Was it Jurassic World that had come out? And I think
it broke the opening weekend record.
Opening weekend record, I think. Yeah. So, but it also set the tone just for the movie industry in general. As successful as the Marvel movies were up to that point, it showed that by having these interconnected films, these interconnected universes that are characters that you could then bring together in these massive blockbusters, was insanely profitable. And now everybody wants to do that. You see, Universal tried to do it with their monster, movies, which is like, everybody's just trying to find their own, franchise to build movies out of.
DC fell victim to it. They saw the success of it, and they immediately just jumped right to, well, let's pump this out. We do BVS, we do Justice League, we'll do that.
Direct response to Avengers, because prior to BVS, you had a successful Man of Steel movie, and I think everybody thought at least I did, and I think a lot of other people thought after the end of Man of Steel, okay, the natural succession is you're going to get Man of Steel 2. And then you hit Comic-Con after Avengers releases, and they're like, we're bringing Batman in. And it's like, oh, okay, cool, yeah, I'm excited, but why? Okay, well, whatever, let's go. So,
which I'll argue too. Like, if I think Zach with that, not to get off topic, but Zach he would have made a hell of a Batman movie. Like, just a standalone Batman movie. Like, I would have loved to have seen, because BVS was like, it was more of a Batman movie than it was a Superman movie. But the problem was it was so split between, I don't know, everything, that you got like a quarter of a Batman movie, a fifth of a Superman movie, it felt like, and then like a fourth of a Wonder Woman movie, and then some weird other like sprinkles of a new take on Lex Luthor, and throw Doomsday in there just because we need them to get together and be friends. And it's just kind of all over the place. But the stuff he set up was really good, in my opinion.
BVS is, I don't know, a million times better if you get a Zack Snyder Batman movie first that gives you the history behind the character, rather than just throwing a Batman in there and saying, oh, he's gone through some stuff, so he's old and grizzled now. Okay, great. You didn't earn that. You just said that. That doesn't mean anything.
No, so,
you give me a Zack Snyder Batman movie where you see him go through that stuff and you get some attachment to that, then that's a much better movie.
Absolutely. Because that's the thing. I really like everything they set up with it. But so a little bit, seeing it, films is a visual medium. The key thing to making a successful movie is show, don't tell. You know what I mean? And with BVS, they told you that this is where Batman was, but they didn't show you. They didn't show you how. They didn't show you why. They didn't show you what made him that way. I will say though, they set up his laser focus on taking Superman down very well. The opening scene of BVS is incredible. Like Bruce on the ground through the destruction of Man of Steel, and like you get to relive it through Bruce's eyes on the ground, everything falling down. Fucking incredible. We're not going to talk about BVS anymore though, because we're doing the Marvel stuff. I don't know. I love that stuff.
But that movie is a direct response to the success.
100%. 100. Because Avengers came out the same year as Man of Steel did.
That's right.
They both came out in 2012.
Yep. Like, Man of Steel followed Avengers, didn't it? Just by a few months, couple months.
I think
Avengers was a May release, I'm pretty sure, and I'm pretty sure Man of Steel was June or July, because I'm pretty sure Man of Steel was trying to fit that Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Dark Knight Rises.
I think it was July 20th. I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look it up and see if I'm right.
That would have been the.
I'm gonna look it up.
The Dark Knight Rises time from the year before.
Damn it! It was June 14th.
June 14th. Okay.
Either way.
Yeah. Still. Summer release just after the Avengers. So, and then Man of Steel. To be honest, I think Man of Steel was hurt a little bit by how successful. I mean, everybody had just seen all these multiple heroes team up in Avengers, and I wonder if Man of Steel is a more successful box office movie if it comes out in April and beats Avengers to the theater.
I think it would have. I think definitely the Avengers had an impact on it, and I think it was tonally. Because the kind of story Zack told with Man of Steel wasn't your traditional. It was more of just a sci-fi first contact movie, like more so than like it wasn't your traditional Superman. Definitely, and that's why I always like to say that Man of Steel is like the most appreciated comic book movie, because it's almost like it's just so misunderstood. Like people. And half the critics out there, if you were to go back and look at some of the reviews, like half of them out there were just like, this wasn't like Superman. Like they were comparing everything to like, this wasn't Christopher Reeves. This is not my Superman. Like this isn't. It's like, it's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be its own thing. Like
everybody got hyper focused on the amount of destruction at the end of movie and stuff like that, and I think it was because the way Zack makes the movie is he makes it in a much more. It's tougher to watch. It's tougher to watch the destruction in Man of Steel with buildings collapsing, and maybe this goes back to just the American psyche of having seen 9/11 happen. But it's tougher to watch Man of Steel with buildings collapsing than it is to watch Marvel's Avengers, where buildings are getting damaged and hurt, but you don't see that apocalyptic imagery of buildings falling down and knowing what people are going through. I like you said, there's a big difference in the tone between the two movies.
I think that's what hurt more than anything, because everyone goes and sees like the Avengers, and it's kind of like it's a fun movie, like it's just like a fun time, and then like Man of Steel comes out.
Happening, but. There are stakes and bad things are happening in the Avengers, but it just doesn't push things to that extreme. Again, I just jump back to September 11th and seeing buildings collapse, and that's a very strong image for a lot of people, even all these years later.
Right. Well, that's the thing, and like it's just like, not to give it like any sort of excuses as to why Man of Steel didn't succeed, but I think it had an impact. It's not the impact, but like it was a completely different. Everyone's going into a superhero movie after watching Avengers, and they're expecting something completely different. Everyone was expecting Superman to be Christopher Reeve's Superman. So it's like, not only are you throwing in this like new Superman, it's got a more grounded tone. They were going for more of a Dark Knight kind of vibe with Superman as far as like how grounded it is, and like they wanted to tell a more realistic story with it, and with all that, they succeeded. Like the story they told is very good, and I like it. It's
I do too.
It's an amazing movie.
It's so great.
Yeah, it's. I don't know. Let's get in to our number two. Our number two.
I'm willing to bet they're the same, but
they probably are. If not, we're just gonna flip flop them. But
all right, so
I got Infinity War.
Infinity War. Yep.
Is that yours?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that makes our number one Winter Soldier then.
Yes, sir.
Unanimous. See, that's the thing too. The Captain America Winter Soldier has been my favorite MCU movie since it came out.
Yeah,
It hasn't changed.
You said earlier that Iron Man 3, you and Rick had discussed how it was going to be the Dark Knight of the MCU. Though for me, that's Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier is the Dark Knight of the MCU for me. That movie.
I mean, it absolutely ended up being that for sure.
Right on par with the Dark Knight as far as just a great film. It's just a great film, but it just has everything you could want. It has emotional impact. It's got, I mean, they started off just brilliantly with Sam and introducing Sam to Cap and setting in the tone for Cap trying to be this out of touch guy who's really kind of lost in the world, and he's writing in his notebook trying to find these cultural things that he's missed while in his time away. It's just such a so good.
Dude, the movie's incredible. Like the combat in it is also like top notch. Like like the scenes with Buck. Like, dude, Winter Soldier is so awesome in that movie. Like, just as a character, like he comes in, Winter Soldier in that movie is almost like just as much of a driving force like Black Panther is in Civil War. Yeah, and it's an interesting juxtaposition just because Winter Soldier is pretty much the crux behind Black Panther's motivation in Civil War as well. So like Winter Soldier being, pretty much that same, kind of character for his movie essentially, like the Captain America Winter Soldier movie. Is like a nice take on it. Like, I don't know. That's not something you get to like hindsight, obviously, but like just everything they did with Winter Soldier. I mean, it's just dude, it's just a great movie. It's the first two, and pretty much Captain America Winter Soldier and Ant-Man are really the only two. Maybe Doctor Strange as well, and then I guess you could say Guardians, but Captain America Winter Soldier was, I think, the first Marvel movie that really wasn't just a comic book movie. It was it was a political thriller. Like it was it was a spy movie. Like it wasn't a comic book movie first. It was a good movie, but it was a genre movie. Like but comic book movie, superhero wasn't the genre. Like,
and you bring Robert Redford into it, who has the gravitas to pull off that character in that role. And make that, the movie, you could say it's a political movie, but if you don't have the actors to pull that off, it falls flat. But they don't. They get great actors all around. Just such a good movie.
Dude, the casting, speaking of good actors, the cast is another thing for all the movies. I'd say Marvel has just absolutely knocked it out of the park with their casting all around, all across the board. There hasn't been a single miss.
No.
Like, I can't think of anybody I would replace or like think like, oh, like someone else would be pretty good in that role too. Like, I don't even have like I really wouldn't, like, even with Edward Norton being replaced as the Hulk, like that's fine. Like,
Ruffalo is perfectly
it's
good in that role.
I don't wish Edward Norton was back any more than I wish it would have been changed. Like, I'm literally fine with either or.
Yep.
I think they've just, even with Terrence Howard and Don Cheadle for War Machine.
That's right. We had a completely changed actor.
No one cares about that. Like, and it's like, honestly, Don Cheadle's better casting as War Machine, in my opinion. Like, just overwhelmingly better.
I can watch those movies and it's not jarring at all. It just.
No, and I give them credit too. They make the joke as soon as you see in Iron Man 2 the new roadie Don Cheadle walk into his first scene. Like, Tony looks at him or whatever, and he's just like, "Yeah, it's me. Get over it." But it's kind of like saying it to like the audience, like, "Yeah, I'm different person. Yes, I know. Let's move on." Yeah. And then you just do. Like, after that, you're like, "Okay, that's him." Like, that was good.
So Winter Soldier. I was saying the praises of that. I have a heart. Infinity War. Every time I think about that movie, it says, you sure you don't want to move Winter Soldier down one? Because I'm a really, really, really good movie. I'm a sucker. I'm a sucker for the middle parts of trilogies, or the part where the heroes lose. Empire is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Oh yeah.
And just that idea that your heroes are infallible or not infallible, is that right? And that they can lose it makes the winning so much better later on. But you have to have that, and it's the emotional weight that those movies carry is just so good.
All right. That's why I said too. Like, could you imagine the stones? I think we said this like a week or two ago. If Endgame comes around and then Thanos just snaps again, dude.
Yeah.
Man, that'd be like I'd love to see that. I don't know. I still say though, that's why what you just said is exactly why Black Panther could have been number 2 on my list. Like, I still don't think it would have been honestly, dude, I'm not gonna lie. If Black Panther could have ended in that way, the way I feel like it was supposed to end, that would probably be that would probably top Winter Soldier on my list if it ended that way. Because it would have it all at that point.
Yeah.
Like, it would have one step, like, because that's the thing Winter Soldier doesn't really have. I'd say is like it has a great ending. It ends fine, but in the end, it's just like, well, Cap wins to some degree. It's just like it kind of wraps up, like in some way.
Yeah.
Like, but
Bucky gets away. It's not a complete victory. It's a victory in a sense, but
it was predictable to some degree, though.
Sure.
Where
I'll give.
Not that it's bad in any way, shape, or it's my number 1 movie on. Like, it's definitely not bad. Like, it's good, 100%. It's great, but that's the one thing that I think it would be like. I'm just saying, like Black Panther, if it ended that way, like now that I'm actually thinking about it, and you hearing you talk about why it's so high on your list, like I know for a fact if that movie would have ended in that way, it would be my favorite movie, like 100%. Like it's literally like, because it is like really like, I don't know why I'm talking about Black Panther instead of like Infinity War and stuff, but like I guess Black Panther being such a driving force in Infinity War, probably why I'm thinking about it. But everything leading up like to that third act of Black Panther is like spot fucking on. Like the stuff with Claw and fucking Bilbo Baggins is great in that movie too. He doesn't get enough credit. Like he was good. Like I like seeing him pop up in Civil War. He's a great little character. He's a great side character, and the interplay between him being the only white guy in Wakanda is great. You know what I mean? Like, because it's just like, of all the people too, just like this little squirrely agent. Like, it's just, he's the guy that we got. Like, and so that's good. But Infinity War, my favorite thing is
you get the snap. Oh god,
them losing is like you're saying, that's the best part of Infinity War. Like, because of what inevitably comes afterwards.
Well, and then the way they portray the snap, with you seeing your heroes. It's not that movie. You could have played that snap so many different ways. You could have played it where they're all just gone. You cut to the remaining people with these looks on their face, like what happened. But to have those moments where Sam or Cap sees Bucky fade away, to have that moment where Peter falls apart in Tony's arms, to have Black Panther disappear, it just, those moments with those characters those pairings and those groupings that you had come to know, seeing Rocket lose everybody was just heartbreaking. The punches just kept coming. It was like it's almost too much to take, but they walk a fine line there, and they walk it brilliantly.
Oh yeah, and everything leading up to it too. Like I mentioned before, like that movie, you could argue is damn near a Thor movie too. Like, the way they use Hemsworth in it too. Like, he gets like the biggest reaction when he shows up back in Wakanda with Stormbreaker in hand, and just like, bring me Thanos, and just like fucking starts laying waste to everybody there. That's the Cap getting Mjolnir scene of Infinity War. Like, like that's the scene. Then, like, him like explaining to Rocket like pretty much everything that I was saying, which is like great about Ragnarok being like as dark as it is and everything. Like him having that like moment with Rocket, which is like the best acting in any of the MCU. Like him, like just that one scene, him talking to his CGI raccoon, just like how it's perfect. It's like everything. And then like him losing, the movie opens with him, and then it pretty much ends with him, and like Loki dies like good, even though we got time travel Loki now, so that's a thing. But it's all great. And then they like the opening scene though with like Thanos being, for one, Ragnarok ending with the opening scene of Infinity War is great. Because it literally that's like your end tag for Ragnarok is Thanos' ship there. So then Infinity War picks up right where Ragnarok left off, which is great. Then Thanos, our opening scene with Thanos is him just feeding the living shit out of the Hulk.
Yeah,
you know, and like that's Loki's big play. You know, is like
we have a
Hulk, and then beats the crap out of him, like
Yeah.
like with like little to no effort, and that it sets the stage for just how like terrifying Thanos is. He only has one power stone. It doesn't even, well, one stone. He has the power stone, and doesn't even need it to just whip up on Hulk. Like he doesn't even need it. Like
yeah, they say right off the bat, like, we're gonna take your biggest guy and we're gonna take him off the table. And you know, it should have, you know, anybody that watched that whole movie and thought that the hero was going to win at the end probably should have thought differently when they opened it up that way.
And I still say though, like I didn't know if they were gonna have the balls to actually do the snap.
Yeah,
And like I was even more and more hesitant as like before the movie came out and reports came out that no longer was like Avengers 4, which wound up being Endgame. Like initially, all the reports were saying like they shot it back to back, and it's essentially like a part 1, part 2. But then,
well, they were announced as Infinity War Part 1,
and then they completely flipped the script on it and said like, nope, they're 2 different movies essentially. Like they're not a part 1 and part 2. Like, and so I was that made me going into it even more hesitant that they were gonna have the stones to actually, no pun intended, I guess, but they were actually gonna have the stones to do that snap. Because we all knew the snap from the comic, but like, did we really think they would do it in the movies? You know, like, but they did. So I give them credit for that. And like you said, the way they executed the snap and how it affected everybody was, I mean, it was done like flawlessly, really. Like that movie. I mean, it's hard to say whether or not, like, you could easily move 1 and 2 around, and I probably wouldn't care. But ever since I saw Winter Soldier, it's been the best one.
Yeah.
Like I still think when anybody's talking about MCU movies, I'm just like, but Winter Soldier though, like that's the one I always go to every single time, no matter what movie they're talking about.
There's not a wasted moment in that movie, and this is secondary to how good the movie is, as far as it's a great film by itself. But it also, as a comic book fan, as a comic book reader and fan, which doesn't matter to a lot of the movie-going audience, they aren't comic book fans, and so that's fine. And this they don't need to know this stuff. But there's some parts of that they are so faithful to. Zola being in the computer is just a callback to the fact that he's a computer in the comic books, and they found a way to make it plausible and realistic and not cheesy in the movie. And then you even have the scene with Captain America, Steve Rogers, trying to escape S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a callback to the original Civil War comic book, where Steve has to escape S.H.I.E.L.D. when he decides that he's not going to abide by what were the Sokovia, where they call them the Sokovia Accords in the Marvel movies. They were called something else. I forget what they were called in the Civil War comic book. But still, Steve Rogers has to escape S.H.I.E.L.D., and you get that scene. And so there's little touches like that that are just so amazing to see them recreate pretty faithfully and add in.
I literally think it's called just the Hero Registration Act. I think it's something named like that. That's what's coming to my head for whatever reason. It might be something different. But no, but too, with one thing I wanted to touch on, the one thing that's great about Infinity War, I will say, because you said like Captain America Civil War was just like a good movie, and I want to give them like big props for Infinity War because one, it's just a good movie, but two, you can go in and actually watch Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame without watching any of the 21 other movies, and like you'll still get it.
You get a story. Yep.
Yeah, like it has like there's a beginning, middle, end in each one. But like obviously if you watch Endgame without Infinity War, you might be kind of confused. But
yeah.
Infinity War, like by itself, you get a lot more out of watching. Just like with every the same could be said for every other movie because they're all interconnected in some way. But like even though they interconnect them all, still you have to give them props for like each movie can stand on its own. And you don't like. I know it could be daunting for someone to think like I have to watch 23 movies, like just to know what's going on. But you really don't. You can skip some. You can kind of really start wherever you want. You're not gonna get where you may not get the post-credit scene, but they don't really make every single movie like literally contingent on what came before it, other than Endgame. Like Endgame is. They want to say it's not Infinity War Part 2, but it's pretty much Infinity War Part 2. Like that's what that movie is. Like, but so I want to give them props for that at the very least. That's our elsewise though. I think our lists were pretty. They're pretty even.
Yeah, we diverged too much. We had everything pretty much in the same ballpark.
I'd say most things are 1 to 2 off from each other in like some capacity, like 1 to 2 away, 1 to 2 away. Like
our big ones. It's funny because our big ones were actually really high on the other person's list. The Avengers and Black Panther, both in our top 4.
Mm-hmm.
The other person, but. So that's an interesting list when it mirrors so much, but then there's 2 that are such big outliers.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The way you look at Black Panther is kind of more reminiscent to how I look at Avengers, because I look at Avengers as like kind of like Iron Man's the one that set everything up and set all this up into motion. I feel like without the Avengers, none of this exists. Like, you know what I mean? Like, none of it exists, especially the way it exists now. Definitely wouldn't have Avengers Infinity War or Endgame if Avengers didn't work. And then just the overall tone, like if Avengers bombed, we'd still have Marvel movies, but they'd probably be more in line with like the X-Men movies. Each one would be their own individual franchise. And they probably would they'd still, try to make the best movie they could, but the whole interconnected stuff, if the Avengers didn't work, they wouldn't be doing that anymore. Like that wouldn't have been a thing. And just like the impact that Avengers had on just like you said, movie going and just the film world as it is, everybody and their mom wants their own cinematic universe, wants to connect this and that, and like everyone's thinking too far ahead. Like, if we make this, how can we all connect it? Like, what can we do out of this? Like, the Avengers set the stage for that. Like, without it, like I said, none of this stuff would be possible without it. Yeah. So I might hold it in higher regard because of that, but at the same time, I saw that movie like I think 6 times in the theater. Like, I loved that movie. Like, it's been years. I think it's been a year or so since I've actually sat down and watched it all the way through. But there's 23 of them that I'm keeping up with, so like I haven't really needed to keep going back. But
no, I think I probably hit 4 or 5 on Avengers. I think it was probably the 4th or 5th time I saw it too before I finally heard what Hulk said to Loki when he was bashing him.
Yeah.
The first 3 or 4 times I saw it, the audience was laughing so hard.
Yeah, it was too loud. Yeah. Right.
The one other thing I just wanted to quickly mention is Infinity War also is really high up there. I think one of the reasons it's also high because Black Panther was so high. But then Infinity War, we go back to Wakanda, and you see Bucky in Wakanda, and you see, you get
White Wolf.
Yep, the White Wolf, and you get to see how T'Challa has, helped Bucky become at peace with, because you've seen Bucky's arc. As much as you get to see Steve's arc throughout the movies and Tony's arc throughout the movies, you also get a full arc for Buffy for Bucky. It's game late. Sorry.
Yeah.
You get a full arc for Bucky. You get to see him kind of have real trouble reconciling what he did as the Winter Soldier, and then T'Challa help him kind of get back to himself and who he wants to be. So
yeah, which speaks to how dope of a character T'Challa was too, because like Winter Soldier didn't do it, but like his whole arc in Civil War was set out to get the Winter Soldier, and like kind of like Tony, like he finds out that he was the reason his parents were dead essentially, and
brainwashed or not, he can't forgive it.
He can't forgive him at all, and then like it's like even though Winter Soldier, like Black Panther finds out he had nothing to do with his dad, and that was all Zemo. So I mean, it's a little bit different, but at the same time, Black Panther still knows all the dark shit that Winter Soldier has done, and he's there to help. You know what I mean? He wants to actually try to fix him. Like, and that's, I don't know. 'Cause Black Panther is probably, like I said before, man, he's probably the coolest character they have to you, like in a lot of ways. Like, especially anymore since like Tony is dead. Not that Tony was the coolest one. Cap was probably, I don't know. I think Thor's still probably the coolest when it comes down to it.
Yeah, I'm really glad we at least still have Thor.
Yeah, Thor is great. Oh, and that was another thing in news. Did you see, like, he said, like, Chris Hemsworth recently came out and said, like, to expect a lot more Thor in the future. So, like,
oh, really?
Yeah, because his contract, we don't know exactly what it is, but his contract was supposedly up after Ragnarok after the, like, Endgame and everything. So, like, no one knew if he was going to come back. And then, like, obviously we found out he was going to come back and do Thor Love and Thunder with Taika Waititi. But we didn't know if that was it or not. And he came out and said, like, just to expect a lot more.
That's awesome. I love that guy. I'm so glad that he's willing to, I understand Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans' motivation to not play the same character over and over and over and over. I get it. And that's their right, and that's great. And it gives us some really emotional beats in Endgame, seeing those characters taken off the stage. But I also really appreciate Hemsworth being willing to just embrace that role and run with it.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing too, man. I don't know, like YOLO in a lot of ways, like like in Hemsworth. I don't know about. I mean, Downey's as far as financials go, Evans and Downey are a lot better off than Hemsworth. Hemsworth, like we said before, because even if you just want to look at the money aspect of it, like Hemsworth is still, even though he's been playing Thor forever, he hasn't been in like a big star in Hollywood as long as Chris Evans and Robert Downey Jr. have.
Yeah.
So like, fiscally speaking, he ain't gonna look the way he looks forever. So you might as well be Thor as long as you can. Like like at some point in time, he's just not gonna be. It's not sustainable. I mean, without like PEDs and like and everything that he's probably already doing, but he'd have to keep doing it all the time for many, 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 many years. But like Robert Downey Jr., like he had the ridiculous contract given to him by Marvel to come back and after Iron Man 2 because he didn't lock him in. They learned everyone else can thank Robert Downey Jr. for having much smaller contracts for the MCU because they didn't lock him down for a big 5 to 7 picture deal, and they had to pay for that. Like, hundreds of millions of dollars. Like, had to go to Robert Downey for the rest of his
part
tenure.
of the proceeds from all the movies, right? I mean, he got a piece of the.
Yeah, I think he got some like back end points on everything too. I would imagine, but I know, like, I think. Don't quote me on it, but I really think for him to come back, he was getting like 20 million per movie or something after Iron Man 2, like just like per appearance. Like it didn't matter if he came in like Spider-Man Homecoming for 10, 15 minutes of screen time, $20 million. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And like now anymore too, he's pretty much CGI Iron Man the entire time. He's like the Mandalorian. He's not even on set anymore. He's just popping in to do some. Yeah. Anyway,
well,
this
I think
is our list.
Yeah, this is our list. It'll be interesting in a couple months to see if Black Widow can make her way. Speaking of which, we didn't talk about her a lot. We kind of talked about her a little bit with regards to Captain Marvel. She is such a great part of Winter Soldier. That's another reason that I think I love Winter Soldier so much. Scarlett Johansson is a very good actress, and so I like her a lot. And but she also does a really good job. She plays that kind of she guides Steve through the world of espionage. She takes over for Nick Fury and guides Captain America along in Winter Soldier, and is such a big piece of why he's able to be successful. Plus, just the chemistry between those two and the way they play that off, and they don't fall into the trap of making them love interests. They play it straight. They're just friends, which is a really cool thing to see on screen. So I'm really looking forward to Black Widow.
Do you think though, because a lot of people because you bring up like the love interest thing, a lot of people were thinking that him and Nat actually did become a thing in Infinity War, based on like how they acted with each other. And then when Bruce comes back, Bruce Banner, he comes back, there was like, I don't know, like an awkward glance between Natasha and Steve when Bruce showed up. So a lot of people speculated.
I mean, if people want to choose to believe that, that's fine. They can. I personally don't ever. I like the fact that they were able to be just friends and that they appreciate each other for their
camaraderie,
but just they were both soldiers. They're both soldiers, and they have that mutual respect, and that's what connects them.
Right.
So yeah.
No, I agree.
But anyway, it'll be interesting to see if Black Widow can crack the top 10, and on my list at least. She has a shot.
I mean, the only thing, if I was looking at anything that would be willing to be bumped, obviously Iron Man, if you would think about it, would be the most likely to be bumped, because no matter where you put something, the 10th place would have to go. But realistically speaking, Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor, even though I have Thor above the Avengers, you could kind of move Avengers Age of Ultron up to 7, and then the first three, like Thor, Captain America, First Avenger, and Iron Man, they're damn near interchangeable. Like they're all equally good in my opinion. Like they're all very, like I said numerous times, they're all different in tone and everything. They're completely standalone movies, but they're all equally good. They're honestly probably some of the best origin movies that like have ever been made for a superhero. Like they're on par with like Batman Begins, like 100%. Like they're all great. So, but yeah, do you got anything else you want to add, or you want to wrap this thing up? I don't know how long after. This last clip that we've been doing, this one's been about an hour. I think we spent about two and a half hours just doing this 23 movie ranking. We almost made our own MCU movie doing.
Yeah, I've been pretty loquacious with this, so yeah, I think I've said just about all I need to say. I will be interested to see what kind of comments we get on it. I really want to hear some feedback from some people. I want to see other people's lists too. I want to see how other people would differ from us.
Yeah, honestly, if you guys want to throw together your list, drop it down in the comment section below, because I would be curious to see, and like let us know what we did wrong here, because I'm sure our lists are just all wrong. Everything we said is shit. We're dog shit. I'm sure in a lot of ways. I'm sure it's terrible. I'm sure. Like, how could we do all this and like we don't know anything? I know. I'm prepared for a lot of that stuff. Like, you don't know what you're talking about. Like, I remember I said one point that like I didn't love Inception, and someone commented and was like, what are you talking about? Inception is one of the greatest fucking science fiction movies of all time. And I was like, okay, I'm glad you feel that way, man. Like, I think it's great too. Like, not Inception,
Interstellar.
Interstellar, yeah. I was like, I like the movie. Like, I said it's good. I just don't think it's amazing. Like, it's good. I like it. Like,
Yeah.
jeez. Like, that's again, we've said this a million times. All of these movies are good.
Brutally honest with me. I'm here to take it. I would not have put a list out there if I wasn't willing to, because honestly, I like hearing what I really enjoy this. Like, I really enjoyed hearing what Rob's list was, and I'm really looking forward to see what other people put down. But I'm also curious to see why people think maybe I ranked some wrong in some ways.
No, yeah, definitely. Like, again, your list isn't wrong and my list isn't wrong. Okay, none of us are wrong here. This is all arbitrary, subjective. Like, who cares? Like, it's all just.
Convince me to move Avengers up some more spots.
I think you're going to convince yourself to move it up because I think it jumped 4 spots before we even moved on past it. I know I moved a couple around, but like, I think I moved. I don't know what I moved at this point because I'm happy with this list. In all honesty, I think I've defended my positions for all of these movies like the best way I possibly could. And like I said, for most of these things, considering they're all good movies, I could just hit shuffle on this list and like I wouldn't really change anything besides number 1 and number 23. Those are static.
Yeah.
Like as of right now, those are static. Like nothing's gonna change number 1 and 23. You know, but everything else you could probably move it around and I wouldn't care all that much, in all honesty. Like, you know what I mean?
I honestly, my top 3 are so there's as much as I love Winter Soldier, and I right now, like, I'm very confident in my. I'm as confident as I am until I see Endgame again, or I see Infinity War again. Endgame, I know we were wrapping things up, and here I go talking more. Endgame is just the accomplishment that Endgame is to so perfectly, in my opinion, wrap up a 23 movie film saga in the way that they did with the kinds of scenes. And like you said, even if it's fan service, the way they did it is just the accomplishment alone warrants being in the top 3, and it may warrant being number 1. I don't know.
And the setup for it was great too. Like that opening scene where fucking Thor just cuts Thanos' head off, dude.
Right? Oh man.
So like the movie starts and you're just like there's a lot of despair like throughout the opening act of that movie. Like you're kind of just sitting there questioning like what are they even gonna do? Like and like you're right there with them, and like especially with Thor when like he's had enough with it. Like he failed in Infinity War, at least he feels like he failed, and he just ends it and just goes and shelters himself away and plays Fortnite with the boys. Like, you know, like it is what it is. Like, but like it's great. I know a lot of people didn't like that part too. That was fine. Like, it was fine. I think maybe the joke went on too long, but like it didn't bother me. Like I didn't care. Like I don't know, because I mean it was all really worth it at the end when he's like Viking Thor with his fucking braided beard and fucking dual wielding Stormbreaker and Mjolnir. Like he looks so cool, dude. Like,
so awesome.
Endgame is great. Endgame is absolutely great. So that's what I was saying too. Like you could probably move this around. Like you could move this whole. I really don't care. Like, but by all means, like we said, let us know how we were wrong in the comment section below. I'm gonna drop your lists down there. I'd like to compare and contrast. And again, like, if you would move stuff wrong, or you think I'm wrong in my explanation somehow, or you don't agree. I guess wrong's a bad word for it. If you don't agree with my assessments and my placings on anything, why don't you let me know? Try to convince me otherwise. Maybe I'll agree with you. If it's about Iron Man 3, save your time. Like save your breath. Save your fingers. You ain't gonna convince me that ain't the worst one, because it is. It's absolutely the worst one. Like, I don't know. You got anything else you want to add?
No, man, this has been very enjoyable. I appreciate it.
Sure, we ought to do what another ranking you think we could do? What was another one?
We could do DC films.
What era of DC? Like all DC?
We could do all DC because you're still not at 23 movies. It'll come in shorter than this one, probably.
Dude, I bet we get a lot. That's the thing, though. I feel like there'd be some unfair rankings if you look at that. Because if, like, for instance, you want to rank Batman movies, you already know the Schumachers are going to be at the bottom. You already know the Christopher Nolans are going to be at the top. You don't, and like, really, where do they go at that point? You know, Tim Burton's going to be in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
Am I wrong with that? Like, where's the surprise? You know,
I might surprise you.
I don't know about that. And then I guess would we include the TV movie for Adam West Batman? I feel like the DC list it'd be kind of unfair.
We'll come up with something.
Yeah, and then Star Wars we could do, but Star Wars I feel like also is kind of like self-explanatory, like in some ways.
Yeah.
But I guess the more fun part is kind of reviewing everything as we go.
And the Marvel stuff will be interesting. What, a year from now we'll have not only the movies, but we'll have television series that fit within this universe, that actually fit within, not just in name only like the Netflix series. But
it's true.
WandaVision is out in a couple months, I think.
Yeah, it's supposed to be. Right? The latest like Disney Plus trailer said that it's like still to be expected in 2021. Didn't give a date, but it was weird though.
2020, I think it said,
or 2020. It said 2020. I'm sorry, still to be expected in 2020. I'm already thinking we're done with this fucking year. But yeah, so that's supposed to come out. But the weird thing is about that is Winter Soldier was supposed to come out in November, and it wasn't in the trailer.
Falcon.
Yeah, Falcon and Winter Soldier. Falcon and Winter Soldier was initially slated to come out, and like I think got pushed back to come out in November. And Disney Plus released this trailer of like things to like look forward to in 2020, and WandaVision was shown in the trailer, but not Falcon and Winter Soldier. Yeah. But WandaVision, we never had a release date for it. We did for Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I find that to be like really odd because, dude, I really want to watch that.
Yeah.
Zemo's coming back. We got, who else was in there? With Mutants in there. What's his name?
Marvel can continue to take all my money. This is just, they are.
Well, no, there's a mutant, and that's the guy with the things, the red something, I think. Wasn't it like
Red Omega?
Yeah,
Omega Red.
Didn't they say that he was going to be in there?
I haven't heard that.
I swear to God, I think it was. I don't know why we were supposed to be ending this, and I'm like looking up more stuff. Hold on. Omega Red. Wow. Yeah, I knew I wasn't fucking crazy, dude. Here. Omega Red. I thought this was a picture. This is on YouTube.
Huh. Yeah, I see Omega Red there.
He's supposed to be here. Hold on. Boom.
Okay.
I knew I wasn't crazy, dude. I knew I seen this something. Because this was like official concept art. I think this was actual concept art. No, this is from Deadpool 2. Dude, now I'm all confused, man. Because Omega Red did have a scene in. Did you see that? He did have a scene in. Sorry, I didn't realize that was all fucking there. He did have a scene in Avengers, or not Deadpool. It's late, dude.
It is late.
He had a scene in Deadpool 2 that got cut out. Did you ever see that? Yeah. It was in the prison. He was actually one of the guys in there.
Okay.
And so it was pretty cool. But yeah, go look up the story. I'm not going to look it up right now because that's not what the show is about. But supposedly, Omega Red is going to be in there, which would be our first mutant introduced into the MCU, technically speaking, if they go that route. Because, yeah, I know Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were in there. But they gave them different backstories, so they weren't actually mutants.
Yep.
So, but that's it. All right, John, where can everybody find you online? I appreciate you coming on. It was good. It was fun doing this.
Over on the tweets, Nightwing_J.
Right. Go follow John. You can follow me at Sir Rob Bifo. Stay tuned next time. Again, guys, you can submit some topics and questions by emailing us at honestanduneducated@gmail.com. That's honestanduneducated@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. Drop your comments down in the comment section below. Tell us how we were wrong. Tell us how we were right. It doesn't matter. Just let us know below. That's it. I'm out. Take care.